The Knights of the Zodiac shine in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Reciprocity. Giving gifts to aliens is nothing. There are already some in stock on the space carrier, ready to be launched at any time, but how to send them to aliens is a problem. After all, sending a nuclear bomb into space through a space gate is different from dropping it directly into Manhattan. No one would believe that the Chitauri spaceship can be blown up by just shooting a nuclear bomb into the space gate. If the plane directly enters the space gate to launch, there are too many uncertain factors in the middle. If it is detonated by an airship or aircraft without long eyes, it will be a disaster. Moreover, the other side of the space gate is the vacuum environment of the universe. The Chitauri airship can adapt to the gravity environment of the Earth immediately after passing through the vacuum of the universe, but the plane carrying the nuclear bomb cannot be like it. If the plane really passes through the portal, it is certain that it will go there and never come back. Even Fury can't give such a Suicide Squad-like order. Therefore, the nuclear bomb can only be sent in by the flexible flying unit. So, when you are at a loss for a problem, the only way you can think of is to ask me for help, right? Tony's voice sounded in the channel. However, your thinking is still correct. Tony Stark can't change his cocky habit, and he can't change it in this life. But cocky as he is, Iron Man is still a relatively reliable person. Whether it's fighting Ultron or Thanos, he rarely fails. He is much better than that idiot Star-Lord. Fury ignored Tony's ridicule and said in a deep voice, "Stark, you have to think clearly. That's a nuclear bomb, and we have no idea what's happening on the other side of the space gate. It's possible that you will face an attack that is powerful enough to destroy your iron armor, or you may be trapped on the other side of the space gate and never find your way back." Fury was not exaggerating. This was a dangerous and uncertain gift-giving journey, and it was very likely that a life would be lost. Iron Man's chance of survival was only theoretically higher than that of a fighter. Tony pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "But do you have any other more suitable candidates?" Fury was silent. Indeed, no one was more suitable for this mission than Iron Man, but he really didn't want to lose Tony publicly. As a genius scientist, Tony Stark's novel inventions will not only drive the progress of human civilization as a whole, but also make outstanding contributions to world stability and peace. He is unwilling to obey the US government, but he does not have such a strong sense of rejection of SHIELD, which will be the most powerful trump card in Fury's hand. The big trump card is a square-faced girl who left a token and wandered around the universe. Privately, Tony Stark is the only son of Howard Stark. Howard Stark made great contributions to the end of World War II and assisted in the creation of SHIELD, and can be regarded as Fury's old leader. "I entrusted my son to you, and you let him grow mushrooms?" In the end, Fury made a decision reluctantly. "Okay, the fate of the Earth is entrusted to you. I represent the Earth." Hey, Zodiac couldn't help interrupting the conversation between the two people full of farewell. "Don't represent others casually, okay?" Zodiac, "Now is not the time to tell jokes. Captain America's serious voice sounded in the channel. He is a serious and upright person, and he has never liked the heroes who make fun of him. "We haven't reached the end of our rope, Captain," Zodiac said helplessly. "Tony is not the only one who can fly here, okay? We have better choices, right?" Sizzle boom. The lightning in the sky electrocuted the newly appeared Chitauri into charcoal, and Thor roared, announcing his presence. To be honest, Thor is the one who is more suitable to deliver mushrooms. He is strong, can fly, and his body can withstand the vacuum environment of the universe. He perfectly meets all the conditions. After a burst of divine thunder, Thor landed like a god descending from heaven, then stumbled and almost fell. "How is it, Shang hiss, have you come up with a countermeasure?" "Well, with this exhausted look of doing too much, who would bear to let him deliver mushrooms?" "Right, after changing your mindset, is it easier?" Zodiac said happily on the other end. Black Widow saw that Thor was supported by Captain America before he could stand up, and finally couldn't help but interrupt. Zion, God can't stand steadily anymore. We can't exploit him anymore. Not only Black Widow, but everyone else felt the same way when they saw Thor's current state. God? You mean Thor? I haven't exploited him. Zia strongly disagreed with Black Widow's statement. No, when did I say Thor should go? I was talking about myself. Zia felt ignored. Don't you know that I can fly too? No. Gwen was the first to jump out and express her opposition. Anyone can go, but Zia can't. Parker also expressed his objection. Zia, the other side is the outer space. You will die. These two are the people closest to Zia, and they care more about Zia than the safety of the Earth. Afterwards, Black Widow also expressed her objection, but not as strongly as Gwen and Parker. While the others remained silent, it cannot be said that they are indifferent, but it can be said that everyone has a sense of justice in their hearts, especially someone like Captain America who has sacrificed for the Earth once. If he could fly, he would definitely rush through the space gate with a nuclear bomb without hesitation. Tony, one of the parties involved, spoke up. It's just a gift. There is no need to make it so grand. Joseph, just sit on the ground and watch my performance. There are not many opportunities to be a hero. Don't come to snatch it from me. Since the relationship with Zia broke the ice and gradually deepened, Tony's use of the name Joseph to call Zia is no longer a simple teasing. Oh, the emotionless Iron Man can also care about others? It's rare. At the top of the building, Zia stood on the edge of the rooftop with his arms folded. The silver-purple holy clothes reflected the sunlight, and the cape behind him rustled. He had a heroic spirit of wearing golden armor after 100 battles in the yellow sand, and never returning until Lulan is conquered. Everyone was about to say something, but Zia interrupted them directly. Director, now is not the time to hesitate. Send them away before the aliens come in large numbers. Okay. Fury did not hesitate at all. The fighter jets have set off, and it is expected that the gifts will arrive at the designated location in 3 minutes. By the way, Zia suddenly added, Black Widow, come up. You will be responsible for closing the space door. Black Widow jumped on Captain America's round shield, turned 3.5 times in the air, caught the flying vehicle with one hand, and the action of bending her body to get on the horse was one of the classic action scenes in Avengers 1. The difficulty coefficient was close to a 100-meter run-up, then flew up, turned 720 degrees in the air, turned 3.5 times backwards, and then hugged her knees and landed and kicked straight. She couldn't just disappear like this. Chapter 202, Blow Them Up. Black Widow's stunning jump was ultimately not realized. After all, there were so many superheroes around, so they naturally wouldn't let her choose the most dangerous way to go upstairs. The most ideal way to go upstairs was naturally a taxi, and Gwen enthusiastically swung the spider silk to send Black Widow upstairs. Of course, sending Black Widow upstairs was just a side job. Gwen's real purpose was to see Zia off. She knew that she couldn't change Zia's decision, so instead of watching him leave with a sad face, it was better to send him off with a smile. In the 3 minutes before the nuclear bomb arrived, the two of them hugged each other and bit each other for 2.5 minutes. When their lips parted, Gwen smiled like a flower. Remember the way I smile. No matter what, I will always be beautiful in your heart. Zia looked back affectionately. It's a pity that the timing is not right now. Otherwise I would like to remember the way you cried and called Bubba. When I come back, Gwen reached out and pinched the two big hands that were playing tricks on her butt, turned over and threw Zia into the air with an over-the-shoulder throw. Don't waste time. Get out. Zia adjusted her posture in the air, waved to Gwen and Black Widow behind her, and then rushed directly into the sky to meet Iron Man, who was flying with the nuclear bomb. You two have a good relationship. Black Widow's voice was a little resentful, but unfortunately Gwen's eyes were always following the figure in the sky and didn't hear it. Yes, we are each other's first love, and we love each other very much. Black Widow pouted, but first love is usually bitter, but we are very sweet. Gwen's smile hurt Black Widow. I also want to be his first love. In the sky, with Zia as escort, Tony's way forward is normal, without any worries. Has Pepper Sister's call not been connected yet? Lazai asked casually while punching and kicking the Chitauri who passed by. Tony's voice was somewhat helpless. Women are like this. When you are busy at work, she will call you one after another to bother you, but when you need to find her, you find that her phone is never connected. Lazai thought for a while. What you said seems to make sense. But it's okay. There must be a TV broadcasting today's scene. Hey, do you see it in that direction? Lazai stretched out her hand in one direction. It seems to be a TV station's helicopter over there. Come and wave. Stop making trouble. We will soon reach the space gate. Just send it here. Don't go in. The space gate was already close at hand, and Tony still didn't call Pepper. Although he was in a bad mood, he still tried to dissuade Lazai from her reckless behavior. Stop talking nonsense. Let's go. Why would I come up if you don't go in? Lazai said and rushed through the space gate first. The first feeling Lazai had on the other side of the space gate was silence. The moment he passed through the door, the noisy noise around him disappeared immediately, without the medium for sound transmission. The space was so quiet that he could only hear his own breathing. Then there was darkness. On this side of the door was the starry sky. Because of the lack of the optical effect of air, although the stars in the distance emitted dazzling light, the surrounding space seemed even darker. Lazai did not feel uncomfortable when she entered the space. The holy clothes once again showed her unscientific power. A set of armor that could not even cover the body completely could actually combine the power of the small universe to play the same protective role as an astronaut's spacesuit. Isn't this infuriating? Tony next to him let go of his hand and let the nuclear bomb on his shoulder fly in the predetermined direction towards the crab-shaped spaceship that was stationary in the starry sky. Unlike in the movie, Tony's microreactor energy was not exhausted, so he was still in the mood to observe the enemy's military situation. Then, he found that the situation was different from what he imagined. There was not only one crab-shaped spaceship. Next to the spaceship where the nuclear bomb flew up, there was another spaceship of the same shape quietly docked. On the two spaceships, a steady stream of Chitauri were rushing towards the portal. Due to the lack of reference, Tony couldn't tell the size of the spaceship, but after a quick glance, he saw at least hundreds of shrimp airships waiting in line, which made his usually carefree nerves tremble. Tony couldn't help but feel scared. Fortunately, the range of the portal was not large. If there was enough space for these things to pass through, New York would become a ruin in less than half an hour. Even if people hid underground, they would still not be able to escape the fate of death. Fortunately, the problem was discovered early. Let's go. It's about to explode. We are not safe here. Tony pulled Lazai next to him and wanted to leave through the space gate, but found that Lazai was looking at another spaceship with burning eyes. They came with two spaceships. It's too easy for them to blow up one. The other one must be shot down, Lazai said without turning his head. Tony looked at his hand. His palm cannon obviously couldn't shoot such a long distance. I want to, but we don't have an extra nuclear bomb. Don't regret it. Let's go. In Tony's puzzled eyes, Lazai slowly made a strange pose. He spread his legs, stretched his hands above his head and crossed them, with his palms facing backwards. The silver light of the small universe lit up on the surface of Lazai's body. Tony quickly let go of Lazai's hand. Just at that moment, his hand wearing the steel glove seemed to feel as if it was burned. Not having a nuclear bomb does not mean that we can't create the power of a nuclear bomb explosion. This is the universe. Finally, I can let go and experience the power of this move. After arriving in the universe, Lazai discovered two things. One is that with the protection of the holy clothes and the small universe, his body was not in danger from the vacuum environment, and the holy clothes also blocked the damage of various cosmic rays to his body. The second thing is that his small universe resonated with the starry sky, a resonant of a constellation from the distant starry sky that contains a powerful small universe. He had felt this kind of resonance on Earth before, but it seemed to be blocked by a layer of something and was not so strong. After passing through the door, the diaphragm disappeared, and the powerful microcosmic power echoing from the constellations raised his microcosm up. and in an instant it reached the height when he was holding the mind scepter on the ground. This state is enough to support him to perform some powerful tricks that his predecessors have left in their minds. Tony stared blankly at the microcosmic light on Lazia's body extending outward, and he didn't know if he was hallucinating, but some phantoms of planets appeared in the starry sky. Lazia lowered his head slightly, his hair covering his eyes, and under his handsome nose, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a pair of pointed little fangs. I'm going crazy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Galaxy Starburst. The debate about who is the strongest gold saint between Saga and Shaka has never stopped, but there is one thing that everyone recognizes. That is, the strongest physical attack skill is Gemini Saga's Galaxy Starburst. Whether from the name or the posture of the move, or the powerful destructive power of the move after it is performed, the Galaxy Starburst is one of the best skills among the Saint Seiya skills. Saga is not just a face that makes so many people lick his boots. How is the Galaxy Starburst blown in the introduction? How to explain it? It has the supreme power that can even shatter the stars in the galaxy. Its principle is to release its own microcosm to the limit, concentrate the energy on the opponent, and can cross the border to attack remotely. Its power is enough to rival the supernova explosion that destroyed the Milky Way. What a concept! In The Wandering Earth, a solar helium flash forced humans to take the Earth away from home and embark on a long interstellar journey that lasted for more than 2,000 years. But the power of the Galaxy Starburst can destroy the entire Milky Way. If this one goes all out, the galactic civilization will be extinct. Perhaps the Earth in the Saint Seiya world really has a barrier of the gods, which can ensure that the Earth will not be smashed into pieces by the naughty kids with one punch of cosmic strength. However, after passing through the space gate, the resonance with the constellation made Lazia have a question in his mind. Since the Earth in the Saint Seiya world is protected by the barrier of the gods and will not be penetrated by the Saint Seiya, then what about the Earth in this world? Is there also a barrier to protect or seal it? Otherwise, why was the resonance of the constellation so minimal when he was on Earth? Of course, he didn't need to find the answers to these questions now. His current task was to destroy the Chitauri's spaceship. When the energy in his body gathered to the peak, Lazia swung his hands at the spaceship in the distance, and a violent force that destroyed the world roared out. Galaxy Starburst. Almost in an instant, the crab-shaped spaceship began to disintegrate from the inside. With a burst of fierce flames, the entire spaceship was blown into countless pieces and then swallowed by a huge fireball. And next to it, the explosion of the nuclear bomb also blew up another spaceship. Tony was really shocked. Even Thor couldn't do that. Was he still the Joseph who acted cute and silly all day and liked to argue and make fun of him? He was a human-shaped nuclear bomb. Fortunately, this human-shaped nuclear bomb was on the side of the Earth. If Tony knew that the ultimate power of this move was to destroy the galaxy, I wonder if he would still be happy. The range of the explosion would soon reach this side. Tony was in no mood to continue to appreciate the masterpiece of the two people. He grabbed Lazia and turned to rush to the space gate behind him. While rushing, Tony shouted in the channel, "Agent Romanov, close the space gate quickly. We will be out soon." The explosion of the spaceship affected a wide range. If it rushed to the Earth through the space gate, it might destroy the several blocks below. Got it. Without saying a word, Black Widow grabbed the Mind Scepter and rushed into the cosmic cube. Gwen frowned and looked at the space door in the sky that was getting smaller. She shouted nervously, "Where's Zion? Why isn't he talking?" Tony turned around and saw Lazia rolling his eyes and grinning, with a devilish smile on his face. Of course, if there was no blood floating out of the corners of his eyes and nostrils, the picture would be even more beautiful. After pondering for a moment, Tony sighed and said, "Jarvis, help me buy a cemetery with a better location on the sunny side. Our hero needs a beautiful place to rest." "Wait a minute, don't you think I can still save him?" Lazia wanted to adjust his posture to make himself feel more comfortable, but found that he couldn't use any strength. If you don't speak, I will be the one who needs to be saved. Your girlfriend wants to come up and beat me to death now. Tony took Lazia through the space door, and the space door closed immediately, blocking the fire behind them on the other side of the space. How could that be? Gwen is actually Gulialilu, a very gentle and elegant girl. Don't think of her as too Gulialilu violent. During the descent, the strong wind blew into Lazia's mouth, making her lips a little limp. Tony in the tin can was not affected at all. He smiled and hummed. Have you ever seen a gentle and elegant girl who would pull an enemy like a meteor hammer and make a whirring sound? Only you can bear it and still think she is gentle. Little Pepper is not like that. She is really gentle and elegant, Tony added. Lazia said hee. Let's learn about the Pepper in the Extremis virus version and the Pepper in the Iron Man suit version. Aren't you afraid that the wind will flick your tongue? Gulialilu. Not long after the two of them left the portal, Gwen found Lazia being held under Iron Man's arm. It was obvious that she had lost her ability to move. This bastard! Gwen cursed fiercely, and it was unknown who she was scolding. Before Tony landed, she jumped up and took Lazia from him. Seeing Lazia's miserable state, Gwen burst into tears. Last time, after being brought back by Tony from the suburbs of New York, she was covered in wounds and looked like she was about to fall apart. But this time she was a little better than that time. At least she was still conscious and knew to wink at her. Gwen was about to say something when she felt a big hand climbing onto her buttocks, still with that familiar touch. Even in this state, can't you be more honest? Gwen really wanted to throw Lazia to the ground, but she was reluctant. Don't look at me bleeding from all 7 orifices and looking miserable. In fact, I am just a little exhausted. Let me take a break. There is no problem going home to spend the wedding night with you. Lazia was really exhausted. After all, a physical move like Galaxy Starburst requires a microcosm above the 7th sense to use. Although his microcosm was elevated by the resonance of the constellations, it still remained at the state of the 6th sense. The result of forcibly using the forbidden move was that the power was not even a little bit worse than the original one, and it also caused a great burden on the body. Fortunately, he had the blessing of the constellations' small universe, otherwise he might have been like the time he fought the Destroyer in the suburbs of New York. Not only did he almost cripple himself, but he also lost the giant armor. Stop it, take a rest first. Gwen put Lazia flat on the ground, just together with the maggot Loki. Lazia turned his head with difficulty and looked at Loki on the side. How is it, Mr. Loki? Have you figured out my previous question? Loki's face was terribly gloomy, and his voice squeezed out from between his teeth. At least I'm not like you now. It's hard to move a finger. A huge figure jumped up from the side. After the green big guy landed, he looked around and found Loki lying on the ground at a glance. Hulk didn't say a word, but took a big step forward, grabbed Loki's leg, and then spun madly. Boom, 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 boom. The body of the Asgardian was indeed hard and durable, and he smashed 2 deep pits on the cement and marble floor. After Hulk smashed it, he shook his head in disdain. Weak. Ugh. In the pit on the ground, the beaten Loki groaned unconsciously, his face full of despair. I wanted to save this chapter, but suddenly I saw a familiar name in the reward list. Harry Potter the first helmsman in my career, who rewarded me, and then I died a few days later. I owe you this chapter, thank you. I just don't know if you can stick to this chapter. Chapter 204. I want to go home. After the spaceship on the other side of the space gate exploded, it lost control. All the Chitauri on Earth were powered off and shut down. The invasion ended. Under the leadership of the Avengers and the Zodiac Guardians, and the coordinated operations of the human army, the Earth finally won the war. In fact, as long as the space gate is closed, even if the invading Chitauri are not shut down, they will not pose any major harm. It is only a matter of time before they are wiped out. In the space carrier, under New York City, and countless viewers around the world who were sitting in front of the TV and watching the live broadcast nervously, they all burst into cheers. We won. Yes, we won. Captain America on the ground stretched out his fist to Thor, panting and sighing. It was really a tough battle. Yes, Thor was about to reach out, but suddenly paused, and he had a shadow in his heart. 10 minutes ago, He wanted to do the same celebration as Hulk, but was punched away by Hulk. After hesitating for a moment, Thor still bumped fists with Captain America. After all, Hulk is just Hulk. I haven't fought so happily for a long time. After the battle, Thor wanted to fly directly to the roof to find his brother. Since they parted on the Rainbow Bridge, he thought they were separated forever. After the surprise reunion on Earth, they naturally had a lot to say, but due to the force field of the two, they have not been able to say a few words to each other. But the comrade who just fought side by side wanted to pull him to talk. Thor was embarrassed to turn around and leave. After all, he still admired Captain America's calm battlefield command in times of crisis. "You have fought many battles before?" Captain America's upright face showed a trace of embarrassment that was barely detectable. He really couldn't act, but the careless Thor didn't notice it. "Yes, I have crossed." Thor began to talk about his rich life experience with great interest, but he didn't know that Captain America, a guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, was also playing tricks on him. When Thor was held back by Captain America, a brutal fight was going on the roof. As the culprit who triggered the fight, Loki thought that being casually swatted by Hulk like a fly swatter would offset his guilt. He was thinking too much. Due to Thor's and Asgard's reputation, perhaps the human government could not issue an order to sanction Loki, but the superheroes with a strong sense of justice would not think so. So although Captain America was a little embarrassed, he still stepped forward to hold Thor back so that the people upstairs would have enough time to vent their grievances. On the roof of Stark Tower, Loki was hung up by several spider silks. Wang Bingbing held a handful of silver needles expressionlessly and began to insert them into Loki's acupuncture points one by one. The many foreigners watching were stunned and had no idea what Wang Bingbing was doing. Lazian, who was lying comfortably on a soft sofa, asked curiously, "Aida, I didn't realize you also know acupuncture." "I know a little bit," Wang Bingbing said modestly, but her hand speed was not satisfactory at all. After a while, the dozens of silver needles in her hand were used up, while Loki had been blown into a hedgehog. Although Loki was hung and unable to move, he never admitted defeat and was still provoking death. "So, is this what you call torture? Are these dozens of fine needles enough? Why not use a dagger? In that case, my pain might be even greater." "You have no idea of the horror that is about to happen." Lazial looked at Loki sympathetically, then turned to ask Wang Bingbing in Chinese, "What is the purpose of this set of techniques?" "To open up his Ren and Du meridians." Wang Bingbing shook her head. "I used special techniques to stimulate his acupuncture points and meridians, thereby amplifying his tactile perception." In other words, Lazial suddenly used some bad memories in his mind. "That is to say, the pain he feels will be amplified tenfold." "Using acupuncture to amplify the senses tenfold, is this witchcraft or black technology?" Lazial stopped talking and looked at Loki with sympathy, ready to experience every pore of his body. "No need to thank me. Is it finally my turn?" Max stepped out of the crowd, arcs flashing on his hands. Seeing the devilish expression on his face, everyone couldn't help but shudder. Loki looked at Max fearlessly. Lazial's conversation with Wang Bingbing just now was in Chinese, so he didn't know what he was about to experience. "Come on, blue-faced monster, use whatever means you have. You look like a frost giant and make me feel sick, you son of the beach." Max shrugged, unmoved by Loki's insults. "I hope you'll be so active again later." "Wait a minute." Lazial suddenly interrupted Max's action, and took a slipper worn by someone from the side and threw it to Max. "He should bite this." Looking at Loki with sympathy again, Lazial said earnestly, "Believe me, I'm doing this for your own good." "Ugh!" Loki wanted to curse, but the slipper was stuffed into his mouth fiercely. Swish! The electric current from Max's fingertips along a silver needle entered Loki's body. Loki's arrogant face paused obviously, and then his eyes widened instantly. His eyeballs almost popped out, and at the same time, his teeth were tightly biting the slipper. The veins on his face and neck were bulging, and his body was shaking like a sieve. Even if Loki was a drama queen, he couldn't act out such a realistic expression of pain. Ugh! At first, Loki could still hold back and not let himself make a humiliating sound, but as the current in Max's hand increased, The pain that was magnified 10 times made him feel what unbearable pain was. The feeling of being covered in a big man is not something that everyone can bear. Finally, when the pain exceeded the tolerance value, Loki couldn't help but scream. The howling sound was so miserable and sad that everyone who heard it couldn't help but feel a little pain in the liver. Lysia silently closed her eyes and recalled the pain she had experienced. When God wants to give a great task to this person, he must first make his heart and mind suffer and his muscles and bones work hard. The others also turned around silently. Although Loki deserved some of his crimes, they really couldn't bear it in their hearts. The current didn't last long, or Loki's will was not as firm as he imagined. In less than 10 minutes, he foamed at the mouth and his eyes rolled back in shock. Fortunately, Loki kept his bottom line and didn't let the rice and water flow away. Otherwise, with his proud self-esteem, he would have castrated himself even if he didn't commit suicide. When Thor came upstairs, he saw Tom Hiddleston lying in the pit, unconscious, with foam hanging from his mouth. Loki's body was really shaking. "Loki, what happened?" Thor rushed to the pit in a panic, looking at his brother on the ground with a distressed face. Loki opened his eyes weakly, looked at Thor with tears in his eyes and a sad face. I want to go home. Thank you Zach for the 588 reward. Chapter 205 Post-War Affairs. When the crisis is over, it is time for the heroes to return to the countryside. When Thor proposed to take the cosmic cube back to Asgard with Loki, Captain America and Tony did not object. Loki had been beaten up badly, so there was no need to keep him. Anyway, he could not be killed. As for the cosmic cube, although it contains infinite energy, it is also a time bomb. With it on Earth, there is no guarantee that aliens will come looking for signals to call. The Earth cannot withstand an interstellar war for the time being. Of course, the Earth will not sit and wait for death, and the pace of heading to the universe has never stopped. The Chitauri's Mantis shrimp airship and energy gun technology will provide great help to the technological level of human society. If humans can study the mystery, the Earth's technology will surely advance by leaps and bounds. By the way, regarding the distribution of spoils, the alien corpses and spacecraft wreckage scattered throughout the Twisted Waste City will naturally be collected and controlled by the U.S. government. Even if the Security Council comes forward to coordinate, they will not let the world share these things. They could only promise unilaterally that if there were other research results in the future, they would be open to the public to a limited extent. This was their limit. As for whether all the scattered spoils could be collected by the government, there should be a question mark behind this question. What puzzled Fury was that as a consultant of the S.H. Bureau, Lysia did not raise any objection to the spoils. Logically, shouldn't he fight for some for the Celestial Empire? As the #1 hero in the Twister War, as long as he made a request, the U.S. government would seriously consider it even if it was unwilling. Lysia said, haha, let alone arguing with those Americans. A negotiation could take so long. How could the Americans give in to such a big thing that involved the Foundation? However, Lysia's failure to fight did not mean that he would not do anything. After the Twister War, everyone first went to eat a Turkish kebab, and then went home to rest, take a shower, change clothes, and have a good sleep. By the time Thor was ready to return to Asgard, it was already a week later. During this week, Lysia took the cosmic cube and the excitation device back to China. At a military base in an uninhabited area in the west of the Celestial Empire, hundreds of remote-controlled Air Force Steel soldiers were ready to go. Afterwards, the cosmic cube was activated, and the space gate that ravaged the Waste Twister was opened again. However, this time, the space gate that was opened was no longer filled with Chittle soldiers ready to go, but piles of space junk. With the help of thrusters, hundreds of Steel soldiers entered the space gate one after another and moved tens of thousands of tons of space junk through the space gate. It was a pity that the spaceship destroyed by the galaxy starburst was too scattered, otherwise it would have received more things. Seeing the piles of things falling from the space gate, Zheng Xian's eyes turned green. Although his predecessor Zhang Heng had seen aliens, he had never seen one. Unexpectedly, Lysia brought him so many alien things at once. Although most of the equipment was damaged after the nuclear bomb explosion, There were still some intact firearms. Even many of the shrimp airships were not affected by the explosion, but were just offline. Even if we don't mention these, the materials and elements that do not exist on Earth are enough to make domestic scientists excited for a while. A week later, the Avengers reunited at the Twister, and Lazia also arrived as the returner of the cosmic cube. Thor held the cosmic magic in one hand and held his brother in the other, saying goodbye to everyone one by one. When he arrived at Lazia's place, Thor smiled and invited, "Welcome to Asgard. We Asgardians are not only warlike, but also hospitable. I will treat you to a drink when the time comes." "This is a formal invitation," I agree, "but how do I go? What is the method to open the Rainbow Bridge?" Thor might have just been polite, but he didn't expect Lazia to take it seriously and discuss it seriously. "I will be quite free later. How about next month? Tell me the method and I will call you before we go." Thor had an awkward but polite smile on his face. "Well, the Rainbow Bridge has not been repaired yet." "It doesn't matter." Lazia smiled and waved her hand to show that she didn't care. "Since you two can go back, then I can go too. It doesn't matter whether I ride the Rainbow Bridge or not." "I'm not picky." "Is it a question of whether you are picky or not?" Thor's back teeth hurt. He really shouldn't be polite to this guy. It's not that Thor doesn't like Lazia to go to Asgard, but Asgard is in trouble now. Because of the break of the Rainbow Bridge and the matter of the Cosmic Cube, the 9 realms are in rebellion. He will probably be busy with wars when he goes back and won't have time to entertain Lazia. Of course, without the Rainbow Bridge, it is indeed more difficult to get Lazia from Earth to Asgard. But no matter how unwilling he is, since it is his own fault, he has to take the blame even if he kneels down. "I'll tell Heimdall that when you're ready. You just need to shout Heimdall to the sky and he will notify me. Then, I'll take you to Asgard." "I feel relieved when you say that." Lazia nodded, then smiled at Loki beside him. "Brother Maggot, see you in Asgard." Loki stared at Lazia intently. He couldn't speak because of the ball in his mouth, but his murderous eyes told Lazia clearly that as long as you dare to come, I will never let you leave. Lazia smiled and took a step back, standing with Tony. "Then I wish you 100 years. A safe journey, goodbye." Chapter 206 Threading the Needle. After watching the two brothers leave, Lazia also got on Tony's jogging car and said goodbye to everyone. This was a complete vacation. Even agents like Barton and Black Widow were given a long vacation by Fury. They could have fun as much as they wanted. There were not many such opportunities. In the car, Lazia and Tony were a little silent. They should be happy about winning the invasion war, but the atmosphere was a little depressing. After an unknown amount of time, Tony finally broke the silence. "Did you move all the fragments from the space gate in?" "Yes." Lazia did not deny it. This kind of thing could not be hidden from others, and he did not want to hide it from Tony, who had seen the spaceship through the space gate with him. "I'm going to China in a few days." Tony covered the convertible of the car when the car drove onto the highway to facilitate the conversation between the two. "Dr. Wu informed me that everything is ready. It's time to remove this thing." Tony pointed at the micro-reactor on his chest. Lazia nodded. "This thing is a time bomb on the body. It should be removed earlier." Tony was lucky this time, with the help of Lazia and his friends, so the New York invasion was not very thrilling. If it was like in the movie, his energy was exhausted at the end, and then there was a slight mistake. There was no energy supply to the electromagnet, the shrapnel would enter the heart, and Iron Man would be GG. Another thing is that after Tony's operation is completed, Lazia will get 20% of Stark Industries shares and officially join the ranks of rich people. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Damn. I almost forgot that I am not interested in money. "Well," Tony said in a deep voice, "I want to take a look at those things by the way. Most of the spoils of New York will be recovered and studied by Stark Industries, but there are only small aircraft and shrimp airships among these things, and there is nothing related to spacecraft." The fear of the universe makes Tony want to see if there is anything useful in the space garbage recovered by Lazia. Lazia paused. He had already handed the things over to Zheng Xian, which was equivalent to handing them over to the country. It was unrealistic to ask him to guarantee that it was okay. After all, Tony's identity was sensitive. He was not only an imperialist capitalist, but also an arms dealer who had sold all over the world. The Chinese government should be wary of such people. However, Tony's next words made Lazia feel that he was a little bit of a villain. I can use all the existing technologies of Stark Industries in exchange for the right to jointly develop space junk. The technology of the Iron Man suit belongs to Tony Stark personally and is not included in the so-called existing technology of Stark Industries. However, even so, Tony is very sincere. This time Lazia patted his chest and said, "I will notify the people over there. I believe they will welcome your visit." Tony nodded and said nothing more, but the solemnity on his face did not diminish at all. Without Tony's explanation, Lazia also knew why he did this. The two spaceships that he had a quick glimpse of in the space gate shocked him too much. Although Lazia helped to destroy a spaceship, Tony still had a heavy burden in his heart, because he was not a person who would put his hopes on others. This was also the reason why he could achieve his current life. For those who were used to their parents preparing everything for them, who muddled through school, who did not find a job after graduation and still relied on their parents to make a living, or who waited for a pie in the sky, even if they had a fortune, they were just bones in a grave. Perhaps Tony would still be like in the movie, unable to sleep all night, and locked himself in the basement to build a battle suit. Although this might not necessarily have any effect, it could at least divert his attention so that he would not be trapped in the fear of the universe and unable to extricate himself. Compared with aliens who can attack a planet across the stars, the Earth is too fragile. Fury's words to the Council. The reputation of the Avengers has not only spread throughout the world, but also shocked the universe. This is exactly our purpose, to declare that we are not easy to bully. If someone offends me, I will do him. Because he has a trump card that he has not used yet. And in addition to the square-faced ant, there are actually people who can be the aliens. But in the eyes of Tony, who does not know enough about the strength of the Earth itself, Fury's words are just a self-satisfying vent. An Avengers alliance can't stop attacks from outside the Earth. So for the safety of the Earth, he needs to do something for the Earth's technology, even if it is to exchange the technology of his own company. It's not that Tony is too saintly, he just realized that after Lazia became a major shareholder of the company, these technologies would be taken out sooner or later. He himself proposed it, which was a good thing and could show his magnanimity. Why not? After returning to his residence, Lazia contacted Zheng Xian through Wang Bingbing. Sure enough, Zheng Xian happily agreed to Tony's request, and said that he would treat Tony's visit with high standards, and immediately sent someone to contact Tony. Lazia actually wanted to say that Tony might just want Dr. Wu to be more attentive when performing surgery on him, which is the same as giving red envelopes to the surgeons in China. After talking about Tony, Zheng Xian told Lazia another good news. They found Ma Hansen. When Lazia heard the name, she was stunned for a moment. She couldn't remember who Zheng Xian was talking about. After Zheng Xian excitedly praised Ma Hansen's research to Lazia, she finally remembered this woman, the developer of the desperate virus, the genius botanist who had a one-night stand with Tony in the Millennium but never forgot about it. Even more than 10 years later, Ma Hansen still had thoughts about Tony and threatened to die to save Tony's life. Is it because Tony's skills are too good? Unfortunately, Ma Hansen met Killian, a scumbag who was even more ruthless than Tony. In the end, the negotiation failed and she was shot to death. Previously, Lazia had encouraged Zheng Xian to date Ma Hansen. After all, this woman is not ugly, has a good figure, and has a high IQ, low IQ, and is sentimental and righteous. If you date her, it means you have obtained a weapon as powerful as the extremis virus. As for the overheating and explosion defects of the extremis virus, there are Chinese medicine practitioners who are regarded as wizards by Westerners, so a method of improvement can still be found. So, she is already my sister-in-law. Thank you Zach for the reward. Chapter 207 A Little Trouble. How can it be that fast? We just found her, and there are some minor problems. What kind of problems? Lazia was a little confused. Is there anything that the director of the Shield Bureau can't handle? The problem is still with AIM, that is, AIM. When Lazia mentioned Ma Hansen to Zheng Xian before, she was afraid that he couldn't find her, so she gave him a clue. which was AIM's avant-garde technology. About 10 years ago, a cripple named Aldridge Killian found the legendary international arms dealer Tony Stark on New Year's Eve of the millennium as a self-employed entrepreneur, wanting to seek cooperation. On this night of cool breeze, Tony Stark, who was famous all over the world, only thought about the girl he had just hooked up at the party. A cripple who started his own business is certainly worthy of respect, but a girl with long thighs is more worthy of semen. So when Killian shamelessly approached, Tony tricked him to the rooftop to blow the cold wind without any psychological burden. The wind on New Year's Eve blew on the face of the downtrodden Killian like a knife. After waiting for a whole night and almost freezing to death, he realized that he was humiliated. Resisting the urge to jump off the roof and end it all, Killian vowed to take revenge on Tony. On the same day, at the same place, another person was stabbed and heartbroken by Tony. Maya Hansen, a botanist who studies life sciences and a long-legged girl with big breasts. Maya thought she could talk to Tony about her feelings, but she didn't expect Tony to just want to give sperm. After shivering, he threw away the ruthless and turned his face away. Tony had no idea how much evil he had accidentally done. After getting up the next day, he left like a demon dog and continued his free and unrestrained life. However, the two frustrated people came together under the arrangement of fate. In the more than 10 years since then, Killian funded Maya's research and applied her technology on plant limb regeneration to animals, creating a new type of biological agent, the desperate virus. Extremis virus is a very buggy existence. After being injected into the human body, it can not only greatly improve physical qualities such as strength and agility, but also gain a very strong recovery ability. Not to mention broken arms and legs. Even if it is burned to charcoal, it can be reborn from the ashes, just like the legendary Phoenix. Unfortunately, this virus has a fatal flaw. Under certain circumstances, the user's body will overheat, causing an explosion. The power of the explosion is so huge that it is almost equivalent to a human bomb. When the people of the S.H. that is found this vanguard technology according to the information, they found that this company was just a high-tech company on the surface, and the products it produced were just some conventional electronic technology products. In fact, Vanguard Technology was secretly using the Extremis virus to fund some anti-government organizations. The leader of one of the organizations was named Mandarin. Mandarin? Didn't Mandarin already? Lazai was a little confused. After beating Mandarin and making him flee in China, he once thought that the name Mandarin would not appear again after the plot of Iron Man 3 began. Yes, after that incident, we specifically investigated the Mandarin and his organization. They have considerable strength in the Middle East and have cooperated with many organizations. This Mandarin should not be the Chu you defeated, but someone else. Chu's identity has hardly been exposed, so there will be no problem in finding anyone to pretend to be the Mandarin. Okay, then what is the problem now? It's like this. Because of her special nature, Maya Hansen was hidden by Killian in a heavily guarded castle. Our people only found her information, but they couldn't get her out of there, and Zheng Xian's voice was a little embarrassed, and we're not sure if she is willing to go with us. So, Lazia felt that she was asking for trouble. She had the good intention of giving Lazia credit, but in the end, it still fell on her head. So, there are some things that our Chinese agents are not suitable to do, but you can. Aren't you a Native American? This was what Lazia said when he first met Lu Jia, a Chinese reporter. Zheng Xian understood that Lazia said this to ridicule his identity. In fact, he was in Cao's camp but his heart was with Han. For the Chinese, nationality is not a problem, as long as his heart is towards the motherland, let alone Lazia himself is a Chinese with black eyes and yellow skin. Even if his blood has been diluted to only 1/8 and hybridized into a black uncle, the Chinese will still treat him as a Chinese. Moreover, Lazia's American nationality can sometimes have unexpected effects. After all, in many cases, the actions of Chinese people abroad are still relatively restricted, even if they are superheroes. Brothers Yan, you are not right. Are you looking for a wife for you or for me? Why do I have to go? Besides, Dr. Maya is old enough to be my mother, right? In the video, Zheng Xian's forehead was frowned. Dongtsai, this is an honest mission. Don't talk so frivolously. This time Bingbing will still be responsible for assisting you. I wish you success. Then are you going to seduce or not? The video was interrupted, and Zheng Xian went offline in a cool manner. Wang Bingbing behind him took the computer and pressed it randomly. After a while, a map appeared on the computer screen. Along with the map, there was also a diagram of the internal structure of a huge building and the distribution of guards. It seems that although the people of the Xinmao Bureau are restricted in their actions, their intelligence capabilities are still very strong. This is the location of the castle, and Wang Bingbing pointed to the drawings on the computer and began to explain to Lazia, but Lazia pressed the computer and closed the screen. Ada, Lazia slightly raised his head and looked at Wang Bingbing's delicate profile. His face was very close to the pair of comma and his nose could even smell a fragrance. What's the matter? Wang Bingbing asked in a deep voice with a wooden face, ignoring Lazia's shifting gaze. A woman's body is also a weapon, and Wang Bingbing is very confident in her weapon. Have you ever been in love? Lazia wiped his nose, and the side effects of his five senses being too good began to show. He smelled a little fishy smell in the end fragrance, and Wang Bingbing seemed to have a relative. Women who use their bodies as weapons also have a fatal weakness, that is, there are always a few days every month that are not deep enough. Wang Bingbing didn't know what Lazia wanted to say, and shook his head indifferently. What's the point of being in love? I don't need it. I'm an agent. I don't have any feelings. Don't be so absolute. People are not machines. As long as they are human, they need feelings. So, when you are free in 2 days, we will discuss this issue carefully. Lazia stood up, leaving Wang Bingbing with a complicated expression there. By the way, it's vacation time now. No matter what problems you have, let's talk about it after I'm off. That's it. Chapter 208. The holiday begins. On a private plane flying to China, Lazia was sitting in a window seat eating breakfast, while Gwen was sitting opposite him, playing with her hair and watching him eat. Are you sure you don't want to have some? Lazia stuffed a boiled egg into his mouth and washed it down with milk. There were many high-protein foods such as beef and soy products on the table in front of him. Gwen shook her head. I feel full just looking at you like this. Lazia peeled the shell of another boiled egg. I'll teach you an idiom to explain how you feel when you look at me now. A beauty that is a feast for the eyes. A beauty that is a feast for the eyes? Gwen repeated the idiom in Chinese, and her pronunciation was more standard than many blue people. Yes, Lazia stuffed the egg into his mouth. It means that I feel full as soon as I see you. Jarvis, is his explanation correct? Gwen had long been aware of Lazia's behavior of randomly interpreting idioms, and she had some distrust of him from the bottom of her heart. It would be better to find a more reliable person to ask. Jarvis's language library contains dozens of Mandarin dialects, and he is considered to be the most knowledgeable about Chinese on the plane. Ms. Gwen, Mr. Lazia's explanation is very similar to the idiom. Jarvis' voice sounded. Without waiting for Gwen to nod, he continued, but my language library tells me that although the two sentences have similar meanings, if you say beautiful and delicious to a girl, she will be very happy. If you say the latter sentence, she may be beaten. Lazia gave a thumbs up to the air. Old Gia, you can do it. You can even recognize the profound Chinese language. My brother is amazing, Jarvis said modestly. I still have a lot to learn. Don't learn anymore. Leave a way out for the poor students. Lazia begged. Is Jarvis really a computer program? Why do I feel like he is just like a real person? A woman next to him asked. She was Maya Hansen, who was invited by Tony Stark to travel to China. That's right. It was Maya Hansen who was studying the extremis virus. The problem that troubled Zheng Xian for so long was solved by Tony with just one phone call. Through Tony's relationship, Maya Hansen directly boarded a plane to China and started a spontaneous trip to see a different world. Unlike what Zheng Xian had inquired, Maya Hansen was not restricted by Killian. Killian, who claimed to be the mastermind behind the scenes, had not yet planned to step forward and officially come out. His identity and what he had in his hands had not yet been exposed, so the supervision of Maya was not so strict. After all, on the surface, Their relationship was that of a partner. Jarvis is an artificial intelligence. In a sense, you can think of him as a person with an independent personality. Tony came over and answered Ma-Yu's question. You still look so young. Ma-Ya shrugged. I thought you asked me to come here to continue the previous relationship, but I didn't expect you to sleep alone for so long. The plane had taken off for 7 or 8 hours, and during this time, Tony had been sleeping on the big bed in his bedroom cabin, sleeping alone. Pepper changed Tony Stark with a single force. That incident has been more than 10 years ago. Unless you bring me a 12-year-old child, it will be difficult for us to have more contact. After all, I have a stable girlfriend now. Thank you. Tony sat down on a seat beside him and thanked the waiter who brought the meal. A playboy is tired of his dissolute life and wants to return to his family? Did I go to the wrong set? This can't be the Oscars ceremony. Mr. Stark, was that your acceptance speech just now? Ma-Ya Hansen couldn't accept Tony's change for a while. You have a stable girlfriend and don't want to have sex anymore, so why did you ask me to come? Although I'm just an unknown scientist, my time is precious. Okay. Tony reached out and poked Lazia, who was enjoying his meal next to him. Don't you want to say something? Lazia swallowed the food in her mouth. Wait a moment. My protein consumption has been a bit high these days. I need to replenish it. Too much protein consumption? Tony glanced at Gwen opposite Lazia, and saw that her face was rosy and shiny, and she looked happy with a balanced endocrine system. He instantly understood what Lazia meant. Oh, it's great to be young. Gwen pretended not to understand what Tony said, and stood up and went to Ma-Ya. Hello, Dr. Hansen. My name is Gwen Stacy, and I'm an intern of Dr. Kurt Connors. Dr. Connors? The Kurt Connors who studies cross-species inheritance? As someone in the academic circle, Ma-Ya really knew Dr. Connors. Yes, the doctor's previous main project was to restore human limbs through the regeneration gene of lizards. Some of his theories were borrowed from the paper you published in Nature. Really? I also admire Dr. Connors's views, just like that one. Two beautiful women dressed fashionably gathered together, not talking about fashion gossip, but began to discuss academic issues with great interest. The style of the picture was a bit biased. Fortunately, Gwen's thinking was strengthened, and she could keep up with Ma-Ya Hansen's ideas by memorizing some knowledge. Lazia next to her had no idea what the two were talking about. Your girlfriend is very good. Tony ate breakfast elegantly. You need to tell me. Of course I know she is good. Lazia gulped down a large glass of milk and burped. If she was a little worse, she wouldn't have squeezed me like this. Tony came over and whispered, would you like to introduce you to some brands of medicine? They are very effective. Lazia sneered, my body is as strong as a calf. Do I need medicine? Keep it for yourself. Looking Tony up and down, Lazia grinned and asked, you haven't relied on medicine for all these years, have you? That stuff is harmful to the body. Tony's face looked a little unnatural. Of course not, it's just, Tony squandered his body when he was young. Now that he is over 40, his body functions have begun to decline. Sometimes, Pepper's enthusiasm is a little overwhelming for him, so he is studying ways to improve his physical fitness, such as using some medicine. Don't say more. I understand. Lazia gave Tony a reassuring look. Dr. Wu should know a lot of old Chinese medicine practitioners who specialize in treating difficult and complicated diseases. Don't worry. Tony waved his hand to interrupt Lazia and gave him a look. Don't say any more. I'll leave this matter to you. Lazia nodded. Don't worry about leaving it to me. There is nothing I can do well. Superheroes are also human beings. Science will die of heart disease. It's normal for Iron Man to have something difficult to say. With Gwen's deliberate flattery, Ma-Ya was not too resistant to this trip to China, but she had always been unfriendly to Tony, probably because of her unsatisfied desires. After more than 10 hours of flight, the private plane landed at Dongpu Airport on the sea. There was a familiar figure among the welcoming personnel. Captain Tao. There is only one chapter today, and the supplement will be made later. Chapter 209 Lushan Waterfall. The 5 Tao brothers all looked alike, and Lazia couldn't tell which one was which, but that didn't stop them from greeting each other cordially. It's said that one of the 4 great irons in life is to have fought together. Although Lazai and the 5 Tao brothers were not comrades in arms, they had fought together on the battlefield, and the friendship between the men had been established long ago. After the two greeted each other cordially, Lazai temporarily separated from Tony. One went north and the other went south. Tony, escorted by Captain Tao, went to Beijing to meet Dr. Wu for preoperative preparations, while Lazai was going to Mount Lashan. On the one hand, he wanted to take the foreign girl Gwen to see the magnificent mountains and rivers of the Celestial Empire, and on the other hand, he wanted to visit Mount Lashan. After all, he still had the title of Dean. "Will you come during the operation?" Before parting, Tony looked at Lazai with a flickering look in his eyes, and Lazai actually saw a plea in it. I don't know if it was an illusion. You have to have confidence in Dr. Wu's medical skills. Besides, isn't the holy garment given to you? Don't worry, you won't die. Lazai comforted. What are you thinking about? Tony quickly denied his worries. It doesn't matter whether you come or not. Anyway, you, a poor student, can't help Dr. Wu. Haha, you are still a genius. Lazai smiled and waved goodbye. Gwen had a great time with the steep and beautiful scenery of Mount Lashan. In particular, she followed the example of her ancestors, sat on the ground and felt the world and explored life in the wild, merged under the starlight, and flew in the moonlight, which made her experience unprecedented surprises and pleasures. Mount Lashan is so beautiful. I want to come again. Gwen leaned on Lazai's chest, staring at the blinking stars in the sky. Anytime. Lazai would naturally not refuse. In the early morning, the Yuan was very quiet. Although the students and teachers knew that Lazai would come, they did not hang banners, erect colorful flags, arrange programs, or do those empty things. So on the day Lazai arrived, the students, as usual, got up and did some simple activities before gathering in the Tandi Daokang, feeling the natural energy in the morning light. The students are very hard-working. Lazai was accompanied by Captain Tao, another Captain Tao whose rank was still unknown. Since the school was founded, the students who were selected have always yearned for extraordinary powers and never slacked off in their practice. Those who were disobedient and troubled, no matter how talented they were cleared out of the academy. What Yuan needs is a group of strong people to support the future of this nation, not potential social crises. Especially after your performance in New York was broadcast back on TV, everyone's enthusiasm has increased. The hard-working practitioners are looking forward to being like you, shining in the battle against aliens. Captain Tao is a rigorous person, and he doesn't say too much, so his words are more trustworthy. Lazai glanced at the square and felt that there were more people than last time. Are all the students in the academy here? Why do I feel like there are a lot more people? Well, with the popularity of Nature is Calling, more qualified students have entered the academy, but not all of them are here. These are the basic class. Captain Tao pointed to a patch of fog in the distance. The people in the elementary class who are progressing quickly have gone to the big waterfall for further study. Previously, Lazai roughly divided the students into classes according to the various stages of Senryuo Wangxiang. The basic class is for people who have just developed a sense of qi. The main course of study is to continue to draw qi into the body and start to learn some simple uses of qi. The elementary class is basically proficient in some uses of qi, and begins to further polish the body to become a warrior who can skillfully use qi to fight. The advanced class after that begins to condense the back pattern. Only when the back pattern is obtained can it be called a true Lashan warrior. There is another class above, called the advanced class, which learns the technique of further condensing qi in back patterns to generate mo yi. To enter the advanced training class, not only talent is required, but also political review. Of course, this political review is different from the one for the civil service exam. It is not just to see if your family relationship has a criminal record. With the help of psychologists, the test participants are tested to see if they have criminal tendencies, anti-national and anti-human tendencies, and other issues. This is a plan collectively discussed by the teachers of the college, which is considered a defense mechanism against the upcoming Taoist priests. But in fact, everyone is not optimistic about this mechanism, because no mechanism will definitely work, and teachers can only play a guiding role. because people's personalities will change. These preventive measures are just better than nothing. After this period of study, some talented people have completed the basic class and started to enter the elementary class. Correspondingly, their class location has also been moved to the Wulao Peak waterfall. With the help of the Tanshai Mansion, an artificial waterfall was built on the Wulao Peak. The vertical drop of the waterfall water exceeds 150 meters, which is as high as 40 or 50 floors. The width is also dozens of meters, and the water flow is amazing. Standing under the waterfall, Lazaya really has the illusion of being in the world of Saint Seiya. But it seems that something is missing. Let the people from the Tanshai Mansion build a rockery in front of the waterfall someday, and insert it diagonally upward to the middle of the waterfall, but don't enter the waterfall, just leave a distance of 4 or 5 meters. Lazaya pointed at the waterfall and said to an officer behind him. Captain Town naturally didn't need to come forward to coordinate this matter. After hearing what Lazaya said, the officer said with an idea, open a cave behind the waterfall, carve a stone bed, stone chair, and stone steps inside, and match it with a set of stone cups and stone bowls, and put a couplet at the entrance of the cave, saying Flower Fruit Mountain is a blessed land, Water Curtain Cave is a paradise. Lazaya turned around and gave a thumbs up. This idea is good, my friend, you have a great imagination. If I were to say, you would definitely be more popular if you wrote novels online than those 23, 24. Don't be a civil servant, it's too wasteful. The officer smiled happily, but muttered in his heart, only a fool would write novels. He would lose his hair and stay up late every day to earn a few melons and 2 dates, and he would fail sooner or later. Apostrophe Of course, there is no need for the Water Curtain Cave, because Mount Lushan is not the Flower Fruit Mountain. Lazaya built that rockery mainly because of his bad taste, and felt that the Lushan waterfall would be incomplete without the squatting old man. There is no Tong'u in this world, but Lazaya can do it himself. Imagine sitting in front of the waterfall with a bamboo hat and taking a nap, while a group of little brothers and sisters in armor kneel on one knee behind him and call him teacher. That scene, wow, is very much like the line "The sun rises in the east, and I am the only one who is invincible." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 Waterfall Backflow. There were not many students in the beginner class, about a dozen people. Looking at them, Lazaya felt like Teacher Tong'u seeing the Saint Seiya candidates who came to Mount Lushan for trial training. She was very pleased. The future of the Celestial Empire, Sanctuary, depends on you. For more than 200 years, Tong'u welcomed batch after batch of Saint Seiya candidates in Mount Lushan. Some of them became Gold Saints, while others could not even become Bronze Saints. What's worse, some lost their lives in training and could not even survive the training period. Over the years, there have been traitors among the Saint Seiya, and every generation has one, especially the professional traitor Gemini, who never makes people worry. However, there has never been a deserter in the Sanctuary. In the Sanctuary, whether it is the Saint Seiya or the miscellaneous soldiers, they can disregard life and death for the greater good. No matter how powerful the enemy or even the god is, no one has ever retreated. The brainwashing ability of the Sanctuary is so strong that it seems that as long as you start on the road of Saint Seiya, you have already put life and death aside. The children in La Yuan are all in their teens. Most of them are born in the 1990s or even the 2000s. What, you mean the 1980s? Sorry, the 1980s should go home and take care of their children. After all, they are almost 30 years old. It is very difficult to make children born in this era become martyr reserve like Saint Seiya. However, this problem has never been something Lazaya needs to consider. He only needs to train them and let them learn and master extraordinary powers. Turning around, with his back to the waterfall, Lazaya faced the admiring eyes of a dozen children. Children's eyes will not lie. I can see that you like me very much. The little heads nodded. Zodiac could probably feel a little bit of the feeling of Tong U squatting on Wu Lao Peak, a living legend, being looked up to by a group of admirers. Okay, Zodiac wore a black mask on his face, and he didn't need to force a fierce expression. Tell me why you like me. You go first. Zodiac casually pointed to the first girl on the left. Hello, Dean. My name is Zhang Wenes. The girl spoke timidly. Zodiac interrupted her as soon as she said the initial consonant of the last word of her name. You don't need to tell me your name, before you become a qualified soldier. Remembering your name is just a waste of my time. Tell me, why do you like me? The girl looked to be in her teens. After being interrupted by Zodiac, she did not get depressed. Instead, she clenched her fist to cheer herself up and said loudly, because the Dean is a great hero. We all saw what happened in New York. If it weren't for the Dean, the United States might have been occupied by aliens. Although it wouldn't have been a big deal if they were occupied. No, I mean, it was because of the Dean that the aliens were so easily repelled, and there were no casualties. Originally, I wanted to study in an art school to be an actor, but now I have changed my mind. I want to be a hero who saves the world like the Dean. Very good. Zodiac nodded. What about you? Do you all want to be heroes? Yes, I want to save the world. I want to save the Milky Way. I just heard that food and accommodation are provided here. I am the hope of our entire village. The last voice was very small, so small that only she and Zodiac could hear it. Zodiac glanced at the child casually. He was too thin and had no breasts, but he was still young. Should he eat more meat, or papaya? Hey, your ideas are all good. Zodiac interrupted the children's heroic words. They are all very second-rate ideas. I hope that one day when you find that even after becoming a hero, you still can't save the world, you can still stick to your original intention and be proud of your decision today. Okay. Zodiac clapped his hands and drew the attention of several children who were thinking about this sentence back. You are all the best among your peers. You can be promoted to the elementary class in such a short time, which is enough to prove your talent. But don't be proud. Do you know how long it took me to practice the all-seeing? After saying that, Zodiac walked towards the waterfall without looking back. Under the waterfall was a stone ground. Because it was a man-made waterfall, there was no deep pool of water under the water flow due to the impact force, and because of Zodiac's request, no pit was dug. The existence of this waterfall is also for the physical exercise of the elementary class. The most pretentious move of the Lushan school, Lushan Sheng Longba, can make the water of the waterfall flow backwards. To make the water flow backwards, one must first have the ability to withstand the impact of the waterfall. Therefore, no matter how old or young, everyone who enters the beginner class must eventually master the ability to take a shower under the waterfall. Zodiac walked to the edge of the waterfall without stopping, and walked directly into it. The water of the waterfall instantly soaked him like a drowned chicken. The waterfall is 150 meters high. The author and the protagonist are all poor students like the students in the beginner class, so they can't calculate how much impact it has. However, the cliff is much more powerful than a car hitting him, but it didn't shake him at all. Zodiac walked to the waterfall as if walking on flat ground. His arms drooped naturally, and his right hand slowly clenched. It took less than a month from the time I received the inheritance to the time I cultivated the back pattern. Zodiac's coat slipped off, revealing his muscular back, and the vermilion bird pattern slowly emerged. I don't know how long it will take you to grow to my level. As the Suzaku pattern emerged, a flash of fire flashed on Zodiac's body, and the fire pushed the heavy waterfall water aside. But I believe that I am not your end. The fiery red Suzaku jumped out from Zodiac's back, turned a circle in the air, made a loud phoenix cry, and then drilled back into his body. I am just a street lamp on your way forward, illuminating the road under your feet and pointing you in the direction, but how to walk this road and where to go, the final choice is up to you. After the Suzaku returned to Zodiac's body, the red light on his body slowly turned white. The white was so bright and sharp that it was impossible to look directly at it. Roar! The dragon soared into the sky, and the huge waterfall was directly pushed up by the dragon head and flowed back to the sky. Under the waterfall, Zodiac did not pose as usual. He just stood there quietly and naturally pretending to be cool. From the day you enter Liyuan, your life is destined to be different. I will teach you everything in the universe, but please remember that our belief is to protect justice. If anyone dares to use their abilities to commit crimes, everything I can teach you will also be taken back. I can create heroes, but I can also destroy them. Thank you all for your encouragement. In fact, I have thought about overturning the settings and rewriting it, but I have already written so much, so I will just try my best to write this one first, and finish the million words before talking about other things. Chapter 211 Acupuncture to Save the World. Wow, the dean is so awesome. A bunch of naughty kids had stars in their eyes and opened their mouths in astonishment. The scene just now was too shocking for them who were still in the second year of middle school. The shocking feeling of seeing the picture on the screen is completely different from the feeling of the dragon flying up close. If Lizia's purpose was simply to make the children feel how powerful he was, then he had undoubtedly succeeded. This ability to reverse the waterfall was enough to refresh their worldview. But Lizia was not very satisfied with the result, because it seemed that no one heard his last sentence. The threat was like playing the lute to a cow. Please, do you listen to the key points? After walking out of the waterfall, the water vapor on his body was quickly evaporated by the flames. After a few steps, Lizia had returned to his previous refreshing appearance. The automatic drying function of the body caused another round of exclamation. Seeing the children staring at their idols, Lizia reluctantly gave up the idea of threatening them. Brainless fans are creatures that will not be afraid even if threatened by idols. All words will be automatically filtered and processed into the warm encouragement and care they want. Let him be. How is it? Are the children easy to get along with? Lizia asked Gwen on the way out of Lashan. When Lizia was showing off at the waterfall, Gwen spent a short and wonderful time with the children of the college as an assistant. An authentic American girl is still very attractive to the children. This has nothing to do with worshipping foreigners. It's just like watching gorillas in the zoo. You may not necessarily admire its strong arms and pectoral muscles, but you will be interested in its behavioral habits similar to humans. If Gwen knew that Lizia compared her to a gorilla in his heart, I wonder if she would want to kill him. It's pretty easy to get along with. They are about the same age as my brothers. I know how to get along with children of this age, Gwen replied with a smile. Lizia then remembered that she still had 3 brothers-in-law. 3. One brother-in-law was already a headache, let alone 3. It's a pity that the time was too short, Gwen said with some regret. There is a little girl named Wenshu who I like very much. Do you think I can invite her to visit the United States? As long as you are happy, ask Ada to arrange it for you. Lizia leaned on the backrest and rubbed her eyebrows. For such things, she could just ask Kwang Bingbing directly. I don't want to leave so early, but Stark's surgery is about to begin. If we don't go, he will die with his eyes wide open. I didn't expect that the great Iron Man would be afraid sometimes. Gwen couldn't hide the smile on her face. Tony certainly wouldn't admit that he was afraid of death. Less than 3 days after parting with Lizia, he hurriedly asked Lizia to go to Beijing to meet him. The surgery was ready and could be performed at any time. Tony didn't want to delay it any longer. Don't you want to witness this great moment in person? The rebirth of Iron Man Tony Stark. Such a great moment is rare even in the entire history. Only Tony Stark can say, seeking protection so fresh and refined. When he arrived in Beijing, Lizia unexpectedly met Pepper Potts and Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes. On such an important day, as the 2 closest people to Tony, they would come no matter how busy they were. Lizia, you are finally here. The 2 were very excited to see Lizia. After all, surgery is related to Tony's life and death. No one can really let go, not even Lizia who knows the plot. Lizia smiled and called the 2, then turned to Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes and said with a smile, is Lieutenant Colonel here too? How are you doing recently? Are you not busy with work in Washington? During the Battle of New York, War Machine was not present. It is said that he was transferred to the White House to protect the president. I am sorry that I was not able to attend the Battle of New York, but that is my duty after all, Rhodes explained seriously. As a soldier, he naturally had to follow the arrangements. However, he could ignore the safety of New York, but he cared about Tony's life and death. Lizia didn't mean to blame him, He didn't have the position to do so. The two of them said a few words and then separated. Before leaving, Pepper held Lazia's arm. The freckles on her face were about to pop out due to nervousness. "Zia, I'm leaving Tony to you. You must help him." "The ones who can help him are those in coats inside, sister. They are angels. They are professionals in saving people and curing diseases." Lazia smiled and made a joke, but the effect didn't seem to be good. The current occasion was obviously not suitable for joking. With a frown on her face, Lazia said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, sister, he won't die with me here." After meeting with Dr. Wu, she took a short break and entered the operating room as an assistant. Tony Stark was stripped naked and lying on the operating table, surrounded by a group of men in blue surgical gowns and masks, with silver needles piercing his body like a hedgehog, looking very helpless. Lazia blinked at Tony. "I'm here to witness you being pierced." Tony rolled his eyes. He was obviously scared to death, but he still pretended to be okay. This was a great consultation related to world peace. Most of the people present were masters of Chinese and Western medicine. However, most of them were just observing. The operation was completed under the guidance of Dr. Wu from beginning to end. This was the tone that had been set from the beginning. After all, each Chinese medicine practitioner has different methods. If everyone were to do it together, it would be like holding a martial arts conference just to unify the opinions. Tony was very lucky. The inexplicable special edition clip did not appear. The long-haired woman with big eyes and a high nose bridge did not appear in the operating room. And Tony did not have to be operated on by a group of people who had simulated countless times on the computer without success. To be honest, Lazia really couldn't figure out what the plot in the special edition movie was meant to express, and he didn't want to figure out the director's brain circuit. If some of the plot shot by Wu Jing was cut into the movie, he would be a little more interested. Before the operation began, Tony drank half a cup of water from the giant lord's cloth to give himself a blood recovery buff, but it was hard to say how effective it was. During the operation, Lazia used the small universe to observe Tony's physical condition throughout the operation, ready to use the ice ability of the giant lord to block the path of the shrapnel to the heart at any time. 3.5 hours later, when the last suture was cut, everyone inside and outside the operating room finally breathed a sigh of relief. The Chinese medicine group headed by Dr. Wu successfully removed all the shrapnel in Tony Stark's blood vessels and perfectly sutured the wound without any dangerous conditions such as heavy bleeding. To be frank, saving an Iron Man who guarded New York, protected the peace of the earth, and will save the earth countless times in the future, Chinese medicine is equivalent to saving the world. Thank you Boyk for the reward. Thank you Yingy for the reward. Thank you Glutinous Rice Balls 00 for the reward. Thank you Salted Fish Melon Skin for the 500 reward. Thank you Death Song Terminator for the 1500 reward. Thank you Winsky for the 1334 tips. Thank you for your support, and thank you to all the readers who like this book. I am just afraid that my writing will get worse and worse, and I am a little sorry for your subscriptions. Chapter 212 Shadowless Forbidden Army. Tony, who successfully walked off the operating table, felt like he was reborn. People who have not experienced life and death will never understand the helplessness of handing your life over to others and being completely out of control. Dr. Wu's team did such a big thing, but they didn't promote it everywhere, and they didn't even show their faces in the feature film. It can be said that they left after the work was done, hiding their merits and fame, which is quite chivalrous. Lazia didn't say anything about this. In this Marvel world where danger is everywhere, it's better to be low-key, otherwise a lot of bad things will come to you. After recovering, Tony, as a hero, did a friendly activity with the children of the Celestial Empire on the Great Wall, which was considered to have made a little contribution to promoting friendly exchanges and cooperation between China and the United States. Special version clip. Lazia and Gwen naturally went to the Great Wall, as a landmark of the Celestial Empire. How can they be called heroes if they don't come to play at the Great Wall? It's hard to imagine that this was built by the ancients more than 2,000 years ago. Gwen touched the ancient and strong Great Wall and couldn't help but sighed. Lazia nodded and said, "Yes, Our ancestors of the Celestial Empire were wise and great, and there are so many crystallizations of wisdom that even today, we still have no way to explain them with science. However, to be precise, the Great Wall was not built entirely by the ancients more than 2,000 years ago, but was built with the efforts of emperors of successive dynasties over a period of nearly 2,000 years. That's also amazing, Gwen exclaimed from the bottom of her heart. Whether looking up from the ground, standing on top of it, or looking down from the air, you will be shocked by the magnificence of the Great Wall. It hardly seems like a great feat that can be accomplished by human power. The literal English translation of the Great Wall, the Great Wall, is not a joke. By the way, Lazia suddenly remembered something funny. Do you know why the ancient emperors built the Great Wall? The history of the Celestial Empire is a history of civilization being constantly destroyed and invaded by the barbaric people in the north, so the construction of the Great Wall is naturally to resist the invasion of barbaric nations. Looking at Lazia's half-smile, Gwen raised her eyebrows. Is there something wrong with what I said? I'm a top student. Okay, Ms. Top Student, Lazia asked with a smile. Then have you heard of Tati? What are you talking about? Well, top student Gwen has at most read through world history, but she doesn't know the deeper level of ancient celestial culture in detail. It's not a set or anything. It has nothing to do with sets. Well, it has nothing to do with safety. We are talking about Tati. Dr. Wu, who was the local guide, just came over and said, Mr. La is talking about the ancient beast Tati. According to legend, it is one of the 4 ancient beasts in mythology. It has a vicious personality, is greedy and eats everything. Dr. Wu is really well informed. Lazia clapped his hands. But what I want to talk about today is not Tati. Well, not completely, but a unit related to the Great Wall, called Shadowless Forbidden Army. Lazia told an ancient story in a deep voice. For thousands of years, emperors of all dynasties have never stopped building the Great Wall. People only think that it is to defend against the invasion of barbaric peoples in the north, but they never know that the Great Wall also serves another defense mission. Tati is extremely vicious and greedy. Every 60 years, the Tati army will gather south to the human world to find food, and humans are their favorite food. Once they invade the human world, it will be a land of devastation. In order to deal with the invasion and predation of Tati, humans not only built a tall wall stretching thousands of miles for defense, but also stationed the strongest human army on the Great Wall, which is the Shadowless Forbidden Army. Why haven't I heard of such an army? Tony interrupted. After Lazia started telling the story, people kept gathering here. Even Tony opened the mask of his iron suit and leaned aside to listen to the story. You have heard of many things. Not hearing about them does not mean that they don't exist, Lazia retorted. Tony pouted and turned to look at Dr. Wu. Old Wu, have you heard of it? After the operation, Tony's relationship with Dr. Wu improved by leaps and bounds. If it weren't for the nationality, he would have wanted to pull Dr. Wu into the Avengers. Dr. Wu coughed lightly to hide his embarrassment. Ahem, please forgive my ignorance. This is the first time I've heard of such a secret. Tony didn't know, which meant that it couldn't be found in Jarvis' database. If it were simply that, it would be fine. Even Dr. Wu, a native of China, didn't know about this secret. So how could Lazia, a fake foreigner, know it? Gwen raised her eyebrows and instantly understood what was going on. She stretched out her hand and pinched Lazia's soft flesh. Tell me, are you making this up? I almost believed it. Lazia pointed to the sky. I swear to God, I really didn't make this up. My friend Matt told me. He said that his ancestor had experienced it personally. That Matt? Gwen pressed. It's the one who looks really cute. Lazia spread her hands. Can you please stop interrupting me and let me finish my story? The story continued. Matt's ancestor was a mercenary. In the middle of the Middle Ages, he and his team traveled across most of the Eurasian continent, heading to faraway China to find the formula for gunpowder, but were inadvertently involved in a century-long war between humans and monsters. Wait a minute, Tony began to nitpick. The middle of the Middle Ages was around 1100 AD. During that period, Tony looked at the results of Jarvis' search. The Celestial Empire during that period should have been the Song Dynasty. To the north of the Song Dynasty, There was a country with even greater military power called Liao, or Kidden, and most of the Great Wall is within the territory of this country called Liao. Why are there a bunch of Song Dynasty troops guarding the Great Wall? What were the Kittens doing? You should know that their military strength at the time was the strongest in Asia. Dr. Wu corrected. In 1100 AD, the Liao dynasty had entered its final period. At that time, they were no stronger than the Song dynasty, and were quickly defeated by the Song dynasty and the Jurchens, so they cannot be called the strongest. The strongest at the time should have been the Jurchens, which later became the Jin dynasty. Dr. Wu, I need to remind you that in 1100, the Jurchens were still a subordinate tribe of the Liao dynasty, and their leader Wanyanaguda was still herding horses and sheep for the Kittens. Tony was dissatisfied with Dr. Wu's correction. Even if I have a good impression of you, you can't question me. Dr. Wu has a good temper and doesn't want to dwell on this issue. He shrugged to show that he gave up. Tony raised his eyebrows at Lazai with a smug look on his face. Go on and explain. What were the Kittens doing at that time? Lazai felt a little overwhelmed. I just want to tell a story. Why is it so difficult? You can just watch it for fun. Watch it if you like, and leave if you don't like it. Why do you have to use history, politics, physics and chemistry to squeeze me? Is it interesting that you have to be so serious about these details? If I knew everything and could explain it reasonably, and I couldn't tell a bullshit story, I would have been a teacher in a school and poisoned minors. An excessive chapter. Really an excessive chapter. Chapter 213. I am anxious. The story was not finished. With Tony and Nitpicker, there was no way Lazai could tell the story perfectly, not to mention that the story itself was full of loopholes. However, looking at the vast mountains outside the Great Wall, Lazai really hoped that there would be a group of monsters like Taddy living there. It would be great if there were such a group of monsters for the students of La Yuan to train. Anyway, with him, no matter how many Taddy there were, they would never be able to break through the defense of the Great Wall. Taddy is naturally impossible. Animals are not allowed to become spirits, let alone Taddy. After leaving the Great Wall, Lazai and Gwen played around the capital for a few more days, while Tony followed a Captain Tao to the newly established space research base in the west. He didn't come back until about a week later, and the group set off on their return journey. The return trip was still Tony's private plane, but there was one less person. I don't know what method Zheng Xian used. Ma Hansen actually stayed, and she volunteered to stay while she was conscious. Even Tony couldn't say anything about this. He could only say that everyone has their own aspirations. He respected Ma Yu's choice. The red wine glass was shaking, and her lips seemed to be stained with something bad. Lazai wiped off the match on the corner of her mouth and took a sip of red wine to swallow the food in her throat. Hiccup. This Rodman Kangsai is not that great. Lazai picked her teeth with her tongue and put the wine glass aside. Gwen next to her couldn't help rolling her eyes. She couldn't bear to go out with such a boyfriend who took ignorance as fun. How could this red wine worth tens of millions of dollars become such a mixed name when it came into his mouth? Lazai didn't finish yet. It's convenient to go out with a plane. Gwen, what do you think about buying an air transportation tool? Private plane? Gwen thought about it and felt that this seemed to be a good choice. It would be much more convenient to travel around the world in the future. Unexpectedly, Lazai shook her head and said, why buy a private jet? I think Fury's ship is pretty good. It's a good idea, Tony interrupted Lazai with a hard-working expression on his face. Do you want me to convert my shares into cash for you now? I'm afraid it may not be enough. A space carrier is a huge ship that can fly in the air. Its construction cost is several times more than that of an aircraft carrier at sea, not to mention the various fighters, air transport ships, rockets and missiles, and even nuclear bombs, laser cannons and other high-tech weapons on it. Not to mention that Fury will not sell it. Even if he sells it, Lazai can't find anyone to drive it. A space carrier is not something that can be operated by one or two people like a Quinjets. Lazai was just joking, and Tony was also joking. For a listed company like Stark Industries, the market value does not represent the assets, and the stock price is inflated. Moreover, even if it is an ordinary wholly owned company, It is difficult to come up with 20% of the asset value in cash at once. If he really does this, Stark Industries may have to file for bankruptcy. Why exchange money? I haven't experienced the feeling of being a shareholder of a large company. Lazier raised his wine glass to Tony. From now on, we will be brothers squatting in the same pit. Have fun working together. Tony said that he couldn't understand Lazier's Chinese English, but he could probably guess what he meant. He raised his glass arrogantly, as if he was flattering you by raising a glass to you. Lazier didn't care. He had long been accustomed to Tony's arrogant attitude. As the two were talking, the TV screen on the plane suddenly interrupted. After a burst of snow, the screen turned into vertical color blocks with a black pattern in the middle. Lazier was very familiar with that pattern. 10 black circles and 2 crossed long swords in the middle were the logo of the Ten Rings Gang. Lazier frowned. Sure enough, what was supposed to come would come. The logo of the Ten Rings Gang disappeared quickly, and the picture showed the back of a person. In the sun, from the perspective of the camera, the person was very tall and burly. In the picture, the man was walking forward with his hands behind his back. There were many people wearing turbans kneeling beside him. Judging from their appearance, they should be from the east and central regions. As the camera switched, countless people with long guns appeared, pointing their guns at those kneeling on the ground. The fire snakes burst out, and life passed away. The picture was very shaky, but a full-bodied voice was very clear. Some people say I am a terrorist, but I think I am a mentor. America, are you ready for another lesson? In 1864, in Colorado, the people in the picture were talking about the atrocities committed by the Americans against the Indians in the early years. The U.S. military once attacked their villages, massacred women and children, and seized the chassis while the Indian warriors were out. It is hard to imagine that such a cruel behavior was driven out by the Americans, the world police who advocate freedom and democracy. But in fact, what he said was not an isolated case. And 39 hours ago, a U.S. air base in Kuwait was destroyed, but the soldiers were out for exercises, and some women and children who stayed behind were killed. Obviously, this is an ambition against the Americans, and the reason is very sufficient. Since you can do this, why can't I attack your military base while your troops are out for exercises? Your remaining personnel are innocent, but are the Indian women and children not innocent? It is just as the saying goes, God will not spare anyone. The reason is very good and powerful. You should bear the sins committed by your ancestors. Even Tony, who is a nitpicker, doesn't know how to refute this set of rhetoric. Although everyone knows that this guy on TV is just looking for a high-sounding reason for his terrorist behavior, you just can't refute him. Who made Tony Stark an American? On TV, the threat of the mandolin continued. Tony chose the simplest method: out of sight, out of mind, mute. Originally, this kind of thing was aimed at the U.S. government. Although Iron Man called himself the nemesis of evil, he didn't have the heart to care about the map attack of a terrorist leader. Since returning from the portal, Tony's vision is no longer limited to the Earth, but has extended the defense circle to outer space. You know what? Tony put down his glass. A trace of anxiety flashed in his eyes. I haven't been sleeping well recently. Before the operation or after the operation? Lazier poured himself half a glass of wine. Although it didn't taste good, it was expensive and couldn't be wasted. Both. Tony raised his head. I'm very anxious, but it's not all because of this. Reaching out and tapping his chest, where the micro-reactor used to be. Are you worried about aliens? Lazier knew about Tony's experience in Iron Man 3 inches where he couldn't sleep all night and wasted his time. He thought that with her around him, the pressure would be less, but now it seems that it hasn't been reduced much. Sure enough, Tony nodded, his eyebrows squeezed together. I've seen those space junk. Their spaceships have too many technologies that we can't even reach now. Chapter 214 New Arrival. Only when you really see the technological level of aliens, you will know how much worse the Earthlings are. It's not their fault that Thor and Loki described the Earth as a barren land. Rather, in the eyes of aliens, the Earth is really garbage. But there is one thing Lazier really can't understand. A Chitauri scared you like this? Do you know that compared to the Chitauri, Asgard's military force is much stronger? You don't think that all Asgard people are rough and tough just because of Thor, that idiot. They also have a technology tree, and it's only higher than the Chitauri. Tony certainly knew this, but from Thor's arrogance, he saw a problem, that Asgard's help to the Earth is limited. Perhaps when the Earth faces a hurdle that it can't overcome, and this difficulty happens to be caused by the Asgardians, or it will threaten Asgard, Thor will appear here. Besides, they will not provide any black technology or products to the Earthlings, including the cosmic cube that Odin placed in the Nordic town of Donsberg. He placed it there because he was confident that the Earthlings would not figure out the secrets. So, Earthlings can only rely on themselves. Maybe our technology is still many years or even centuries behind theirs, but our progress will definitely scare them, Tony said confidently. From Howard Stark to Tony Stark, the Stark family has always been a leader in leading the direction of technological progress on this Earth. On the road to the future full of unknowns and dangers, they will never back down, and they will never back down. Zodiac couldn't help but applaud Tony. What the Earth needs to progress is a scientist like Tony who refuses to admit defeat, not just himself. I quite agree with your concept, and I particularly admire your spirit of self-improvement. But to be honest, I plan to go to Asgard to take a look. Do you want to go with me to see it? Learn from the barbarians in order to defeat them. This is a saying of our ancestors in the Celestial Empire, which means, I understand what the sentence means. Tony nodded, but now is not the time. My Iron Man suit still needs some time to be optimized and upgraded, and there will be joint research projects with the space in the Celestial Empire that need to be carried out. I'm afraid I can't get away for the time being. Anyway, Asgard has been there for thousands of years. It's not an island that can sink if it wants to. Sooner or later, I'll have a chance to see it. There's no need to rush, haha. Asgard will also be destroyed. Zodiac shook her head and said nothing. Things like Ragnarok were too alarmist. Even Thor and Loki wouldn't believe it, let alone Tony. Okay, then I'll go alone first. To be honest, the environment on Earth is not suitable for my growth. I hope to find something new and exciting in Asgard. By the way, if you go to Asgard, bring me something back. Tony thought for a while and said, "Don't." What did he ask you to bring? Thor tossed the hammer in his hand while walking with Zodiac on the broken Rainbow Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge destroyed by Loki's disruption has not been restored yet. It took Thor a lot of effort to get Zodiac to Asgard. Not long after Zodiac returned to the United States, he called Heimdall, and then Thor took him to Asgard. Walking on the Rainbow Bridge, Zodiac looked at the scenery of Asgard curiously and shook his head. What else can it be? Of course it's true. You also know that Tony relies on the Iron Man suit. Only by upgrading the suit can he gain more powerful power, and Ru is the best material he can think of at present, except for the space gate in the Battle of New York. This is the first time Zodiac has come to a place other than Earth. Asgard's illusion is very unique. The tall fairy palace is located in the center of the city. The fairy palace is surrounded by huge and gorgeous urban buildings. There are mountains behind the huge city and the sea in front. In the center of the sea is a long rainbow bridge that leads to the edge of the sea. The most amazing thing is that after the mountains and the sea extend outward for a distance, they suddenly stop. There is a void on the other side of the mountain, and a waterfall on the other side of the sea. The water flows down to an unknown place. It's like a huge floating island, but it's not floating in the clouds and mist, but in the illusory starry sky. Asgard gives Zodiac the feeling that it is more like a game map than a planet, and it's not a world map, but just a main city map. Not to mention compared with the Earth, even compared with Azeroth, Asgard is much smaller. But such a small place actually gave birth to the Aesir, a fighting nation that cannot be said to be the strongest in the universe, but is also one of the best. And their leader Odin is so strong that he has no friends and can be called a figure in the entire universe. Stark has a good eye. Ru is a rare metal even in the gods' domain. There are only a few weapons in the gods' domain that are made of Ru, and all of these weapons are powerful artifacts. Thor raised the hammer in his hand, like my Thor's hammer, my father's eternal spear, and Loki's dagger. When mentioning Loki, Thor's expression was obviously not as excited as at the beginning. Zodiac could see from his eyes a kind of emotion that he tried hard to hide, but couldn't hide. If I guessed correctly, that kind of emotion should be called, "Let's go." I'll take you to see my father first. He was very happy to hear that you were coming. Let me take you to see him as soon as possible." Tony smiled and changed his mood. He took Lazai and walked towards the distant Asgard. "By the way, you can fly, right? Let's see who flies faster." Thor, who is more than 1,000 years old, is still a child. Because of his status, he doesn't have many friends, especially those who don't care about his status and have the same strength as him. Forget about Loki. How could a brother who turned into a snake at the age of 8 to lure Thor into a trap and then stabbed him with a knife become his friend? Lazai's appearance was a supplement to his childhood. Seeing that Thor had already swung the hammer in his hand, Lazai did not hesitate to put on the armor of the Giant King in an instant. Since it is a competition, there must be something extra. "What is the bet?" "1 piece of ru," Thor said with a smile. "Deal." As soon as Lazai finished speaking, the figure rushed out. Thor's face fell instantly. "Hey, I haven't said start yet. Where's your bet?" Although he was shouting, Thor's speed was not slow at all. Driven by Thor's hammer that turned into a propeller, his speed instantly increased, chasing Lazai and flying towards Asgard. As Asgard got closer and closer, Lazai felt more and more oppression. Odin's small universe lay quietly in front of him, motionless like a mountain, but it made people feel awe. Chapter 215 Odin is old. When it comes to Asgard and Norse mythology, there is one person that cannot be avoided, and that is Odin. Just like Zeus in Greek mythology, Ra in Egyptian mythology, Indra in Indian mythology, and the god of heaven in the mythology of Nihongo. Well, the last one is a little inferior in status, but he is more well known. Odin has been in charge of Asgard for thousands of years, and he is respected or feared by people from other countries for both power and strength. Even the purple potato spirit in the distant starry sky will not come to Asgard to snatch the infinite gems when Odin is still alive, for fear of being hung up and beaten by Odin. Although this is just a rumor, it is enough to show the strength of Odin. It is not the first time that Lazai has met Odin. The last time, Odin came to the earth and personally entrusted him to educate his 2 sons. As a result, with Lazai's efforts, Thor and Loki successfully embarked on the old path destined by fate. Thor has matured a little, but Loki has gone further and further on the evil path, and finally succeeded in making a big mistake and was imprisoned in the dungeon of Asgard. "You didn't fulfill my request, Earthling." In the hall, Odin sat slumped on the huge throne, glaring at Lazai with his only remaining eye. Judging from his appearance, he was just an old man who was about to die. But the powerful small universe in him rushed towards Lazai fiercely, trying to force him to kneel down with strong pressure. Lazai gritted his teeth, and the corners of his purple mouth slightly curled up. Although his forehead was sweating, he still had a faint smile on his face. Looking at this Odin who was forcing him, Lazai confirmed one thing in his heart: he was really old. If it was Odin in his prime, he would not need to use his momentum so obviously to suppress others. Just his casual look and cold snort were enough to make Lazai unable to raise any thoughts of resistance. Odin was so arrogant back then that the other leaders of the 9 kingdoms were just younger brothers in front of him. Unfortunately, the country is easy to grow old, and heroes grow old. Even with a lifespan of more than 5,000 years, Odin still came to the end. In response to Odin's question, Lazai gritted her teeth and said, "Great Father of the Gods, I'm sorry that I have failed your trust, but frankly speaking, 2 people who have spent 1,000 years to develop their current personalities, you want me to change them in a few days? Aren't you asking too much? Don't you think it's a big joke to attribute your children's faults to others?" In our celestial empire, there is a saying that goes, if a child is not well educated, it is the fault of the father. If a child is not strict, it is the laziness of the teacher. I would like to give you this saying and hope it will be helpful to you. Odin frowned and sat up straight. His aura suddenly increased. "How dare you use a mortal saying to educate me? I am the father of the gods." Lazai's body trembled, but he did not fall down. Instead, he squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. "I only know that you are a failed father." Thor next to him couldn't stand it anymore and gently pulled Lazai with his hand. "Come on, he's my father. Is it really okay for you to confront him like this? Or in your eyes, am I also a failed work?" Lazai was unmoved, looking at Odin with a fearless attitude. "I said, If you have the guts, kill me. I'm afraid you are not a member of the Communist Party of China. Lizai was not reckless, but believed that as the father of the gods, Odin had the courage to do so. If he killed the benefactor who saved his own son from his stepson because of a truth, he would not be worthy of sitting on the throne. After staring at Lizai for a long time, Odin finally sighed and slumped back in his chair. He looked hundreds of years older in an instant. I am really old. The pressure on his body suddenly disappeared, and Lizai finally breathed a sigh of relief. His back was soaked in sweat and felt a little cold. It is said that a lean camel is bigger than a horse. This Odin is already so awesome, but he can still release such a powerful power. I can't imagine what he would look like in his heyday. If it was Odin with a hot temper when he was young, Lizai might have knelt down long ago. Dad, hand slips, Thor shouted distressedly. He pulled Lizai just now not because he was afraid that Lizai would be killed by Odin, but because he was worried that Odin would be angry with Lizai. After all, he was old. Odin waved his hand. He is your friend. You can go out with him. Don't worry about me. Thor looked at Odin worriedly, and seeing that he didn't want to talk anymore, he had to take Lizai out of the hall. Brother, you just went too far. Thinking of Odin's look of vomiting blood, Thor felt a little twisted in his heart. He didn't want to make his father angry to death so that he could usurp the throne when he pulled him to the god's domain at Lizai's request. Sorry, I didn't expect this to happen. Lizai shrugged. But you saw it just now. The old man actually pushed all the things about Loki on me. I can't bear this lame. Thor stopped. Although what you said is all right, as the son of Odin, I think I need to do something. Lizai turned around. Are you sure? Thor nodded without hesitation. On this day, Asgard, which had always been peaceful and tranquil, suddenly became lively. A duel was about to take place in the arena. On one side of the duel was Asgard's god of war and future king, Thor. On the other side was a warrior from Earth, a Saint Seiya who inherited the Olympian Protoss. Not only many Asgardians, but also Thor's follower Sif and the three warriors Volstagg and Fandral came upon hearing the news. After seeing Lixia's appearance, Volstagg and Fandral's hearts couldn't help but skip a beat. Isn't this the guy who cut off their pants on Earth and made them slack off? Why did he come to Asgard? The two of them didn't have time to think about it, and the two sides on the field had already fought together. Because it was not a life-and-death fight, Thor did not use the Mjolnir hammer, and Lixia did not wear the holy clothes. The two of them were purely fighting in physical combat. Thor, who is over 1.9 meters tall, is not only much taller than Lizai, but also much stronger. In comparison with him, Lizai looks much thinner. In the eyes of the Asgardians, Lizai, an earthling, can only be turned into slag in seconds. They are ready to cheer for their heroic god of war, but when the two of them fought together, they found out that they were wrong. The god of war they respected and loved was actually being suppressed. Lizai gave up the holy clothes, but he just lost a set of protective gear. It had little effect on speed, strength, or even the ability of the ice and fire microcosm. In terms of attack alone, it was at most 10% to 20% weaker. But Thor, who gave up Thor's hammer, was different. The hammer cannot be said to be all of Thor's strength, but it is more than 50%. With the hammer, he is the invincible Thor. Without the hammer, he becomes a tiger without teeth, claws, and steel whip tail. He is taught a lesson by Lizai every minute. Chapter 216. No hammer in hand. For a long time, there has been a problem that has troubled Thor. This problem should start with the relationship between humans and the universe. Well, let's not talk nonsense. This problem has not been around for that long. It started when Odin exiled Thor. When Thor's hammer was taken away, what else could he rely on to fight? In the movie, Thor had been using Thor's hammer to bully people everywhere in the early stage, and he didn't need to think about this problem. It was not until Thor 3 inches that the hammer was crushed by Hela, and he himself fell out of the Rainbow Bridge and drifted to Sicr. Facing the Hulk, who didn't recognize his relatives, he realized the way to fight without a hammer in his hand. The power of Thor. How strong is Thor, who has awakened the power of Thor? In a word, he can hang Hulk up and beat him without a weapon. This time, Thor did not wait until he lost his hammer to reflect on his shortcomings. After being beaten by Lizai in front of the people of Asgard and unable to fight back, He began to face himself after losing both his inner and outer qualities. "How about we arm ourselves first and then continue?" Leziah said this with good intentions, but to Thor, he felt that he was mocking him. "In your eyes, am I just a puppet controlled by a hammer?" Just like the glasses are the real body of the new chicken, Thor's real body is Thor's hammer, and Thor is just a frame to support the hammer. Although it feels that this description is quite appropriate, it is definitely not allowed. Leziah scratched his head. "Well, Thor, don't get me wrong. How could we?" "Sure enough," Thor interrupted Leziah with a stinky face, "you hesitated just now." "What?" Loki actually said something similar to Thor, but Thor didn't take it seriously before, because Loki was full of nonsense, and if he took him seriously, he would lose. But Leziah's brief hesitation made Thor think that he had recognized the reality. Sure enough, everyone regarded him as a waste who was completely dependent on weapons. After thinking about this problem clearly, Thor's eyes instantly turned red. Thor is a very proud person. As the heir of the god king of Asgard, his pride is innate and indelible. How could he bear to be defeated by an earthling? Although he does not have his exclusive weapon Thor's hammer, he cannot guarantee that he will fight the enemy with Thor's hammer every time in the future. What if the hammer is taken back by Odin? What if the hammer is teleported to other planets by the space gate? What if the hammer is crushed by someone wearing heavy makeup? What can Thor do without the hammer? It's terrifying to think about it. In Thor's eyes, Leziah on the opposite side gradually became an imaginary enemy from outer space, and Thor has decided not to pick up the hammer on the side again. He wants to defeat the enemy in front of him with his own strength. Seeing Thor being beaten by Leziah, the Asgardians who were watching the excitement around him were silent, especially Volstagg and Fandral. They both faced Leziah and knew the powerlessness in Thor's heart at this time. That guy, he won't cut off Thor's pants and embarrass him in public. I don't think so. If he really did that, I'm afraid Father God Odin would not be able to help but take action to deal with him personally. The two looked at each other, and it was hard to tell whether their expressions were worried or expectant. On a wide balcony high in the distance, two people were standing side by side looking at the arena. The one-eyed old man was naturally Odin, and the elegantly dressed woman next to him was Thor's mother Frigga. Thor was actually defeated. Frigga looked at the arena in disbelief. Although she always liked to say how good other people's children were, in the eyes of a mother, her own children were always the best, and the Queen of Heaven was no exception. So after seeing Thor lose, Frigga's shock was beyond words. "Humphrey." Odin glanced at Frigga with his one eye, and didn't say anything, but the meaning was self-evident. The reason why his son was useless was all because of his mother's spoiling. A loving mother often spoils her son. Frigga is not a mother who dotes on her son unconditionally, but she does feel guilty because compared to Thor, she has devoted more energy to Loki. She even taught Loki all her best magic, while Thor didn't even learn the basics. Originally, neither of them thought there was anything wrong with doing this. Thor didn't like learning magic anyway. He preferred to rush to the enemy and beat him with real swords and guns. But when they found out that their son became a waste without a hammer, the old couple felt a little embarrassed. The only difference is that Odin can return the blame to Frigga, while Frigga can only bite the bullet and bear it herself. But at this point, Frigga thought of Loki in the dungeon again. Although he was not her own son, she had always raised him as her own son. Can you make Loki? Don't mention that bastard." Odin was furious when he mentioned Loki. Odin wanted to curse a few words to vent his anger, but the clear sky above his head suddenly became cloudy, and large clouds began to gather. In the thick clouds, something seemed to be surging. Odin looked at the arena in surprise, and saw that Thor's eyes had begun to emit lightning at some point. The old couple suddenly got so excited that they didn't know what to say. The power of lightning can be said to be the exclusive ability of the god King Odin. Thor's original power of lightning and the ability to control Thor's hammer were all given by Odin. Because it is an external force, when Thor makes Odin angry, Odin can take back this ability at will and turn Thor into immortal. As the heir of the god king, Thor has the seeds of the power of lightning in his body, but he didn't know it himself. It was not until he was slapped in the face by Leziah that he remembered that there was something in his body. When he was attacked by Loki's destroyer in the suburbs of New York, at the last moment, the power of thunder and lightning in his body awakened, and he was able to recall Thor's hammer. He didn't take it too seriously before, because with Thor's hammer in hand, he didn't need to study whether the power of thunder and lightning in his body was given by Odin or developed by himself. Now, he is finally sure. Without the hammer, I am still the invincible Thor. Crack boom, thunder roared in the clouds in the sky, as if responding to Thor. Lozi raised the corner of his mouth. What's the point of a Thor who can't discharge electricity? This is the way it should be. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Electric Roasted Firebird. The power of lightning in his body awakened, and Thor, with lightning flashing in his eyes, was really like a god descending from heaven. He rushed towards Lozi with great momentum, sparks and lightning all the way, but from the special effects point of view, he won without a doubt. Just that domineering lightning, burning money every second, lasting for 5 minutes, tens of millions of US dollars were gone. Before Thor's fist hit Lozi's face, the crowd around him had already started cheering. No matter who saw it, Lozi was dead. In the eyes of the Asgardians, those who mastered the power of lightning, whether it was Odin's father or Odin, had never been defeated. Thor was no exception. In everyone's script, Lozi should have been defeated by this punch wrapped in the wrath of thunder, so that Thor's bravery and invincibility could be reflected, and it was in line with the identity of the Guardian of Peace in the Asgard universe. Except for Lozi, he was not here to be a supporting role. Lozi did not come to Asgard for a vacation, nor did he come here simply to fight and exercise his abilities as he said. He came here with the mission of seeking cooperation and swearing the Earth's military power. Asgard claims to be a god. In their eyes, the Earth has always been a barren land, and the Earthlings are a group of ignorant mortals who are at the mercy of others. With this sense of superiority, the Asgardians will never regard the Earth as a qualified ally. Even if they are willing to cooperate with the Earthlings, they will regard it as their own charity. It is true that the Earth, which has not yet entered the cosmic age, may lag behind Asgard in technology for several centuries, but this situation will be rapidly shortened under the leadership of countless Earth elites such as Iron Man Tony Stark. The Earth will become Asgard's ally against the evil forces of the universe, not a vassal. So facing Thor's thunderous punch, Lozi didn't think about it and went up with his fist. The seemingly ordinary punch hit Thor in the air. Under Thor's thunder and lightning, the fist seemed unusually ordinary and small. But such an ordinary punch was enough to suppress the thunder in the sky, preventing him from moving forward. The two of them faced each other with fists, and were deadlocked in midair. Just when everyone was puzzled, a spark suddenly burst out from the fist, and as soon as the spark appeared, it quickly expanded and wrapped Lozi's fist. Afterwards, the flame did not stop expanding, but formed a flame whirlwind that quickly extended backward along Lozi's arm, and soon spread to his whole body. With the loud sound of the phoenix, the flames quickly gathered on Lozi's body into a huge firebird, with its eyes wide open, glaring fiercely at the thunder in the sky. The strange phenomenon in the sky attracted the attention of the entire Asgard. Odin and Frigga frowned tightly. In just a few minutes, their expressions and moods were ups and downs like a roller coaster, from the initial confidence in Thor, to the worry and unwillingness when they found Thor was beaten, to the surprise when Thor used the power of thunder and lightning. Now, when he saw the giant fire phoenix appear and compete with Thor's lightning, Odin suddenly realized that he had underestimated Lozi and the Earth. Perhaps in the millennium when he was not paying attention, the Earth has undergone earth-shaking changes, and has even developed to the point where it can challenge Asgard. If this is really the case, what is Asgard talking about to protect the peace of the universe? In the dungeon, Loki sat on the ground, leaning against the wall and gently turning the pages of the book. Suddenly, his movements stopped, and his eyes slightly raised, as if he felt something interesting. After a while, he raised his mouth and moved his eyes back to the pages again, reading with relish. but he didn't turn a page for a long time. Thor in the air felt a huge sense of crisis the moment the fire phoenix appeared. He moved his fingers and wanted to grab the hammer on the side, but the reason in his mind told him that this was just a competition, not a life-and-death struggle. If he really used the hammer, even if he defeated Lazian, he would lose. But if he doesn't use the hammer, it would be difficult to defeat the Fire Phoenix on the other side with the strength he has shown now. For now, the only way is to develop his own abilities and gather more thunder to break the Firebird with one blow. In the sky, the area of the clouds began to expand. The electric snakes in the clouds were unwilling to be lonely and poked their heads out, and began to shuttle between the clouds. The air was also filled with lightning, and the crackling sound of lightning was endless. Faced with this doomsday-like scene, the Asgardians who were watching were also scared. They didn't care to wait for the result of the fight and fled the scene one after another, fearing that they would become the fish in the pond that was affected by the thunder. Soon the arena was cleared, leaving only a few companions who blindly trusted Thor, such as Sif, Volstagg and Fandral, who were still there. When Thor's momentum reached its peak and fell with thunder covering the entire sky, Odin's face changed. This bastard, does he want to destroy Asgard? With the destructive power of the lightning in Thor's hand, it is impossible to destroy Asgard, but it is more than enough to destroy the buildings within a few kilometers around the arena. And in that area, there are not only buildings, but also the people of Asgard. Frigga tightly grasped the handrail in front of her. The thunder had already fallen. Even if she and Odin wanted to take action, it was too late. For now, they could only hope that the Firebird on the ground was not bluffing. I hope he can block Thor's full-strength attack. Odin and Frigga began to cheer for their son's opponent in their hearts at the same time. Please don't lose. In the arena, Lazia seemed to have noticed and looked back in the direction of the two people. Boom! Several meters thick electric snakes rushed straight to the ground, and the sky within a radius of several kilometers was covered with electric snakes. Under the thunder, whether it was people, buildings, or even the earth, they would be reduced to dust. Amidst the thunder, a Firebird soared into the sky with an indomitable momentum. The thunder in the sky was nothing in its eyes. In just a moment, the Firebird collided head-on with the thunder, and then in the devastating thunder, the Firebird struggled a little and disappeared into thin air. Not even a spark was produced. Odin was stunned, and Frigga was stunned. Was all that pretentiousness just now gone in just a moment? What a joke! The most devastated were Sif and the other two. They were standing directly at the edge of the arena, right in the center of the thunder's strike range. It was too late to run now. Are they going to die here today? The three looked at Lazia in the arena in despair, trying to remember the appearance of the person who killed them firmly in their minds. Unexpectedly, a golden light appeared and almost blinded their eyes. Chapter 218. Surprising, Thor was frightened when the Firebird was engulfed by the thunderbolt. The reason why he dared to use such a powerful move was not only because he was a bit stupid, but also because of his trust in Lazia. Not to mention that he had seen Lazia's strength before. Just based on the momentum of Lazia blocking his punch just now, Thor had every reason to believe that even if Lazia could not completely resist this blow, he could at least resist most of it, and those that missed, under the effect of the current, even if they hit the ground, would only cause damage to the center of the arena, and would not pose a threat to the surrounding buildings and civilians. But I thought I was roasting a sparrow on the electric stove, but it turned out to be roasting a mosquito. With a snap, the Firebird disappeared. Without the obstruction and counterattack of the Firebird, the thunderbolts naturally hit the earth unimpeded. Their powerful destructive power was enough to destroy the entire arena and might even affect the surrounding areas. When Thor found that his actions would bring local destructive trauma to Asgard, his back was instantly soaked. But at this time, the thunderbolts were no longer under his control. He could only watch them fall to the ground in pain and guilt. Odin in the distance was about to shed tears. That earthling was too worthless. He was just bluffing for a long time and didn't even have the ability to stop the thunderbolt. Seeing that the thunderbolt was about to fall, the powerful destructive power would inevitably implicate the surroundings. They were all his people, and would soon be Thor's people. Once the thunderbolt struck, Thor would be blamed for his death. No matter how powerful he was, Asgard would not recognize a leader whose hands were filled with the blood of his people. Under the thunderbolts, the Asgardians looked helplessly at the sky with lightning and thunder, and greeted the coming death and fear. However, one step ahead of death was a golden wall of light, just like the wall of light that appeared in the air during the Battle of New York, blocking the Chitauri from advancing an inch. It was like a natural moat, blocking all the thunderbolts on the other side of the wall. The crystal wall made another great achievement after New York. At first, Loki wanted to fight Thor head-on. You have thunder and I have blazing flames. Flame fighters have never been afraid of anyone in a battle of attacks. But the look back before the attack made Loki change his mind. Humphrey, that old guy Odin, he obviously didn't teach his son well, but he still blames me. I will scare you half to death first, and then make you grateful to me. Loki smiled evilly, and the firebird in his hand shot out, and at the same time, a huge crystal wall was set up in the air not too high from the ground. The firebird only had a shape but no substance, and it dissipated into nothingness after being hit by the thunder. Seeing this, everyone thought that Loki was powerless to resist, and the power of thunder would immediately follow the trend and kill him, the arena and the surrounding area to ashes. But at this moment, the crystal wall suddenly appeared, blocking the thunder in the sky in front of him, turning the tide. Is it unexpected? Is it surprising? Seeing the crystal wall shining with dazzling golden light blocking the thunder, everyone was relieved, but everyone's reaction was different. On the balcony, Odin snorted coldly and walked away, while Frigga beside him followed slowly, holding her chest. The two of them really didn't feel like watching anymore. They thought that Thor could teach the Earthling how to be a good man after mastering the power of thunder and lightning. But they didn't expect that in the end that they would thank Loki for saving the lives of countless people in Asgard. Outside the arena, the Asgardians who survived the disaster cried with joy, and Volstagg sat down on the ground, panting and sighing. Just because he helped us block the thunder just now, I forgive him for being unreasonable to us on Earth. Fandral stood tall next to him, maintaining an elegant knight image, but if you look at him, you will find that his legs are shaking. He simply hummed to show that he heard Volstagg's words. If he said more, he was afraid that his voice would shake. On the other side, Sif looked at Thor, who had landed with stars in her eyes. Although she was almost hit by his lightning just now, this did not hinder her admiration for him. That infatuation and love could not be resisted even if she was torn to pieces. This woman is beyond saving. After landing, Thor turned his head and looked at the civilians nearby who were looking at him with some fear, especially some young children among them, with a complicated expression on his face. Hey, Loki, who was not far away, gave a thumbs up and praised, "Brother, you are really powerful this time. Such a powerful thunder, I almost couldn't stop it." Thor's face became gloomier. "I know I almost destroyed Asgard just now. Please don't remind me again." He was full of grievances in his heart, but Thor couldn't say a word. He was sure to suffer this loss. Thor had known Loki for a long time, and with the indoctrination of the Avengers, he had a deep understanding of Loki's bad character. But he found that his understanding seemed to be insufficient. He didn't expect that this guy would come up with such a trick to scare him. After a moment of silence, Thor stepped forward and stretched out his hand to pull Volstagg up. "Are you okay?" Volstagg jumped a little and did a chest expansion exercise, and said stubbornly, "What can happen to me? You should worry about Fandral. He is so scared that he almost peed his pants." Fandral rolled his eyes at Volstagg, turned to Thor and said, "I just didn't expect that you could launch such a powerful attack with just your body. It seems that the distance between us is getting farther and farther." Thor's smile was a little forced. "My friend, can we not mention this, Thor?" Sif took a step forward and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Thor's wave of his hand. "Don't stand here, talk about it later." Turning his head to look at Loki who was approaching, Thor's mouth trembled. "This is Loki, you all know her." Several people nodded and greeted Loki awkwardly. The scene when they met before was not very friendly. "Hi, everyone from the gods, long time no see, how are you?" Loki was sensible enough not to pull up his pants, nor did he look at Volstagg and Fandral below their belts, at least saving their face. "Where are we going now?" Sif asked, staring at Thor's sculpture-like profile. Thor turned and looked at Volstagg. Oh, oh. Volstagg clapped his hands. The next step is of course to welcome our friends. I just happen to know a good place. We won't go home until we're drunk tonight. Thor nodded. Damn it, dare to play tricks on me. I'll get you drunk in a while, and then find 10 or 8 big men to have sex with you. Chapter 219. What did I do? In the early morning, Lizzie woke up in a strange room. Touching her dizzy head, she opened her eyes and looked around. It was indeed not her room. Fortunately, there was no woman or man next to her. After putting her hands on her head for a long time, her memory slowly emerged. I seemed to have come to Asgard. I had a quarrel with Odin first, and then I had a fight with Thor. After that, I seemed to have gone to a tavern to drink. Then, why was my mind blank? Knock knock knock. There was a knock on the door from outside. The sound was very light. Lizzie looked down and saw that her clothes were still intact, so she shouted, "Come in." The door was opened, and a girl in simple clothes came in with a basin of warm water. After the girl came in, she kept her head down, her face flushed, as if she didn't dare to look at Lizzie. Lizzie frowned and lifted the quilt. "You haven't taken off your pants yet. Why are you shy?" After putting the basin aside, the girl knelt on the other side, blushing and not speaking, but her meaning was already very clear. This is a maid who serves guests to wash and brush their teeth. Lizzie couldn't help but grit her teeth. What era is this? They still use servants. It is simply a trampling on human rights. This is the degeneration of human nature and the regression of society. As a child who unfortunately grew up in a country that advocates human rights and democracy, Lizzie decisively did not refuse the girl's kindness. Anyway, double standards of forgiveness, even if you are harsh on others, is a tradition of the United States, and the system of Asgard is like this. Lizzie is at ease to be served. It is a very pleasant thing to be served to wash and brush your teeth. Of course, if the girl cannot blush and say nothing and look shy and cowardly, it may be better. Lizzie really wants to ask, "Did I show you the artifact when I peed in the street last night, or did you accidentally hold my handle when you covered me with the quilt, so that you are scared to the point that you look like I may pierce you at any time? Who can tell me what happened after I blacked out last night?" Unfortunately, after more than 10 minutes of washing and brushing, the girl refused to speak, no matter how Lizzie threatened, bribed, and used soft and hard tactics. What a pity. Lizzie shook his head as he watched the girl leave. She was pretty, but unfortunately she was mute. After packing up, Lizzie touched his flat stomach and prepared to go out to find something to eat. He pushed open the door and saw a long corridor with rooms on both sides. The corridor was about 5 or 6 meters wide, the ceiling was more than 10 meters high, and the length was more than 100 meters. After walking along the corridor for half a minute, he reached the end. Lizzie coughed lightly and asked the guard beside him, "Friend, may I ask?" "Aye." The guard turned around and saluted when he heard the voice, but he also turned a deaf ear to Lizzie's question, with a subtle expression on his face. But these two were black guys and couldn't tell his expression. Fortunately, it was like this, otherwise the two strong men would blush and show shy expressions to Lizzie, and the scene would be absolutely eye-catching. He asked several guards in a row, and all of them were equally respectful, with the same subtle expressions and the same silence. This was really annoying. Who can tell me what happened? Lizzie wanted to confront a guard and force him to confess, but his attitude was very respectful, so he couldn't find a reason to get angry. He was so anxious that his hair was almost pulled out. Walking along the corridor, Lizzie finally found an acquaintance in a large room. Volstagg, if I remember correctly, before he blacked out last night. It was this guy who drank a glass of wine, and then he didn't remember anything. "Hey, Lao," Lizzie greeted and walked into the room. There was a large table in the room, and there were many fruits and meats on the table. Volstagg was lying on the large sofa, grabbing a large elbow and eating it. "Hey, Lizzie, you're awake. You must be hungry. Come on, I'll treat you to a delicious meal." Volstagg smiled and pulled Lizzie to the table, and raised the large elbow in his hand. "Try this elbow. It's roasted in honey sauce in the kitchen. It tastes great. Take a bite." Lizzie dodged back inconspicuously to let the elbow covered with saliva pass. Volstagg's words sounded familiar. "Oh, Right. Come on, try this cup of wine. It's brewed by the winery with a secret method. It tastes great. Take a sip. This is what Volstagg said to Lazai in the tavern the night before. As a result, after tasting the cup of honey wine, Lazai fell asleep. Until now, I don't know whether I fell asleep by myself. Thank you, I'm a vegetarian. Lazai thanked Volstagg for his enthusiasm, reached out to pick up a cucumber and stuffed it into his mouth, tilted his head and asked, "Where's Thor? Why don't I see him?" "Oh, Thor is studying the map with Fandral. I can't understand those things, so I have to replenish my energy first." While talking, Volstagg had already gnawed one elbow clean, threw away the bone and grabbed another one. While eating meat, Volstagg asked casually, "Did you sleep well last night?" Lazai shook her head. "I don't even know when I fell asleep." "What kind of wine was that last night?" "How come I drank one glass and—" Lazai turned to look at Volstagg, not missing any of his subtle changes in expression. A straightforward person like him is generally not good at concealing, and everything is written on his face. Sure enough, Volstagg's face changed, and became a little shy. "OMG. Sure enough, it appeared. I knew it." Lazai felt like she was going to collapse. "For a maid, it's okay, but you, a strong man with a beard, how can you be shy? Can you not be so weird?" "That," Volstagg said shyly, and Lazai listened attentively with fear, for fear that something unbearable would come out of his mouth. "Well, the wine we drank yesterday was 1,000-year-old fine wine treasured by the gods. The wine barrels were made from the wreckage of Brunhilde's fleet. You know Brunhilde, she was a Valkyrie thousands of years ago, and she once led a team to quell the rebellion in the gods." Lazai nodded. "If I remember correctly, Thor used a few drops of this wine to knock Uncle Lee down in Avengers 2 inches, but Lazai doesn't care about these at all. Please hurry up and get to the point." "I have always coveted the deliciousness of that wine, but I have never had the chance to taste it. Because of you last night, I was able to drink a glass, and then—" "Don't split at the critical moment." "And then what happened?" Lazai asked anxiously. "What about me? Where am I? What am I doing? Why are you looking at me like that? You should hurry up and tell me." "Then, I got drunk." Volstagg patted his stomach. "I slept on an empty stomach all night, and I woke up hungry." "To be honest, are you really not going to have a bite of this elbow?" "Hey, wait for me." Chapter 220 Ready to go. In a large room, Thor, Fandral and several people dressed as generals were standing in front of a wall. On the wall hung a huge map, with mountains, rivers, plains and buildings drawn casually. Lazai took a look at it from the side, and it was hard to imagine how they could fight a war based on this abstract map that looked like a stick figure. Seeing Lazai coming in, Thor waved his hand as a greeting, and then turned to continue the discussion with Fandral and others. Seeing that they seemed very busy, Lazai politely did not go forward to disturb them, but found a seat nearby and sat down, and asked Volstagg, who was panting behind him, "What kind of map is that?" "A treasure map?" Volstagg rolled his eyes. "Come on, that's a military map. Exploration is not as fun as fighting." Lazai suddenly leaned in and asked, "By the way, I have a question that I've always been curious about. With your skills, in Asgard—" "Let's not talk about Asgard, let's just talk about this room. Except for Thor, compared with those people in armor, are you better or them?" Volstagg gestured with his fingers magically. "Them? Humphrey. There's not a single one who can fight. Of course I have to be better than them." He really wasn't bragging. Lazai seemed to remember that in Thor 2 inches, Volstagg single-handedly blocked the charge of an army. Although he was buried in the crowd in the end, he also made a great contribution to the smooth escape of Thor and Loki. After Volstagg finished speaking, he continued to gnaw on the elbow proudly, but suddenly he heard Lazai sigh. "Sure enough, in Asgard, except for Odin and Thor, there is no one else who can fight. These guys in armor look so majestic like gods, but they can't even beat a good-for-nothing. How sad." "Who are you talking about? A good-for-nothing?" Volstagg was choked by the big elbow and didn't react for a while. Lazai turned to look at Volstagg and asked quietly, "Given your relationship with Thor, you must have fought many battles with him, right?" Without waiting for Volstagg to answer, Lazai continued, "I'm really curious, with your skills, How did you survive so many battles? You don't look like the kind of person who likes to slack off and watch your teammates fight and win by yourself. Do you rush into the crowd and get chopped all over every time, and then be carried out by Thor? Volstagg felt that he was discriminated against, but he couldn't get angry because what the other party said was basically the truth. It's not just 1 or 2 days that Volstagg likes to charge, and it's not just once or twice that Thor has rescued him from the crowd. Moreover, Lazai was the guy who challenged him, Vandal, and Hogun with one sword. Getting angry at him was like seeking death. There was no other way. He could only bite the elbow in his hand viciously, biting all the meat in his mouth in 3 or 2 bites, chewing viciously, feeling like chewing Lazai as meat. Lazai sat back on the bed, as if talking to Volstagg, or as if talking to himself. Loki regards us Earthlings as mortals, and Thor keeps saying he wants to protect us, but we only see a group of barbaric warriors whose tactics and methods remain in the era of cold weapons, not to mention nuclear bombs. Even 2 submachine guns can sweep a large area. Is this the Ezra in our mythology? This is not a myth, it's a joke. No wonder Lazai sighed. Except for a few gods in Asgard, everyone else is weak. Let's not talk about anything else, just say Scorch, the executioner who replaced Heimdall as the guard of the Rainbow Bridge in Thor 3 inches. After going astray and coming to his senses, he took 2 M16 submachine guns obtained from Earth and became a hero who could defend the Rainbow Bridge alone. If he hadn't run out of magazines at the end, he could have defended the Rainbow Bridge by himself. According to this logic, as long as they can contain Odin, Thor and other high-level fighters, and then get a well-armed reinforcement company from Earth, they can sweep across the entire Asgard. After being discriminated against by Lazai, Volstagg focused his attention on his elbow and didn't want to pay attention to what he was saying. No matter how strong he is, the breeze blows over the hills. On the other side, Thor finally finished a wave of discussions and walked over to greet Lazai with a smile. Hey, Zion, did you sleep well last night? For some reason, Lazai always felt that there seemed to be something hidden in his smile. Shaking her head, Lazai stared into Thor's eyes. I didn't sleep well at all. I don't even know when I fell asleep. How can I sleep well? Thor, who has an intelligence of 2, definitely can't lie without changing his expression. Lazai believes that she can see something in his eyes. Ha ha ha. Thor laughed wildly. The most capable fighter on Earth, who claims to be able to drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk, was knocked down by just 1 glass of wine. It's so funny. Ha ha ha. Seeing Thor laughing so hard, Lazai frowned deeply. This guy's smile was so real, it didn't look like he was hiding something. After I got drunk, what happened? Lazai asked unwillingly. Thor thought for a while. After you got drunk, we sent you back to your room to sleep. What else could happen? Fandral behind Thor nodded. Volstagg too. He got drunk after just 1 glass. So embarrassing, so rude. I just drank a little too quickly, Volstagg argued in a low voice. Thor reached out and patted Lazai on the shoulder. Let's talk about drinking another day. Let's talk about the business of going to the 9 realms first. 9 realms? What happened to the 9 realms? Because of the destruction of the Rainbow Bridge, the 9 realms fell into chaos, and we need to reorganize the order of the 9 realms, Fandral explained. In mythology, the Rainbow Bridge is the passage connecting Asgard and Earth. Lazai was a little confused as to why the destruction of the Rainbow Bridge would cause chaos in the 9 realms, and what the inevitable connection was between the two. However, seeing that Fandral did not seem to want to explain, he had to listen to it for the time being. Anyway, the purpose of his coming to Asgard was to follow Thor to fight in the war, so there was no need to delve into the reasons. Volstagg had put down his elbow at some point, and wiped the oil stains on his beard clean. At this time, he was waving the axe in his hand and shouted excitedly, "Is it finally starting? Where are we going first?" Lazai's mouth trembled. "You changed your clothes too quickly. And, why are you so excited as a scumbag?" Thor raised his hand and Thor's hammer flew over from not far away, and he held it steadily in his hand. "Let's go to Hogun's hometown, Vanaheim first." After Lazai came to Asgard, he had not seen Hogun, one of the three friends of Asgard. It turned out that there was a problem in his hometown. Chapter 221 For the tribe. There are two tribes of gods in Norse mythology. In addition to the Aesir to whom Asgard belongs, there is another tribe of gods called the Vanir. Compared with the gods we are familiar with, such as Odin, Thor, and Loki, the gods of the Vanir are not famous. Among the three warriors of Asgard, Hogun comes from the territory of the Vanir, Vanaheim. After following Thor to Vanaheim, Loziah almost thought that he had arrived in the west of the Celestial Empire. The barrenness and desolation here made it hard to believe that it was a place where the gods lived. They lived in dome tents, cut wood with axes, and grilled food in the open air. It was better to say that this place was a tribe than a kingdom of gods. Not to mention compared with Asgard, even compared with Orgrimmar, which was established by a group of barbaric orcs, this place could be turned into slag in seconds. When the Asgard army arrived, this barren country was suffering from a barbaric invasion. A group of monsters with strange looks, who had nothing in common with humans except walking upright and speaking human language, were burning, killing and looting everywhere. Seeing those monsters, Loziah felt like she had traveled to the world of Journey to the West. There were wolves, tigers, leopards, demons and monsters everywhere. The warriors of the Vanir fought desperately, but they were constantly eaten away by powerful enemies that were several times their own. Hogun was fighting at the front of the crowd, covered in blood. His body was covered with wounds, but he fought to the death. As his comrades fell one by one, his face became ferocious. The women and children behind Hogun screamed in fear, but as long as he was still alive, those swords could only cut his body and not take the lives of those behind him. Just when Hogun felt that he was exhausted and could not hold on any longer, a beam of light fell from the sky, and the Asgard army arrived in time. Hogun, we are here to save you. As soon as Volstagg landed, he rushed out with an axe and chopped at the head of a minotaur. Kakapoof, a column of blood sprayed into the sky, and the huge bull head was thrown to the grass on the side, with the bull's eyes as big as fists open. Ha ha ha. Cool. Volstagg succeeded in one blow, and then entered a crazy killing state. Fandral behind him also rushed up, but compared with Volstagg's boldness, Fandral's movements were very elegant and agile. His weapon was a rapier, and his advantage was not in slashing, but in stabbing. Every time he swung his arm, he would block the enemy's attack, and then elegantly pierce the tip of the sword into the enemy's heart. Even in battle, you must maintain a gentlemanly demeanor. Fandral, who can keep his hair in good shape even in battle, said so. Sif is more manly than Fandral. Although she is not as bold and vulgar as Volstagg, she will inevitably take a life every time she waves her hand. Under the leadership of the three, Asgard was extremely brave. In just a moment, the enemies surrounding Hogun were slaughtered. Thor retracted his stance of swinging the hammer and pouted, I haven't even tried my best, and you've already fallen. Loziah rolled her eyes. The line was wrong. Seeing the arrival of Thor and the others, Hogun felt relieved. A smile finally appeared on his blood-stained face. He clapped his hands with Thor, who walked up to him. Brother, thank God, you're finally here. Thor put his arm around Hogun's back. You're in trouble. How could I not come? Hiss. Hogun bared his teeth, but the smile on his face revealed two words: happiness. Volstagg, who was covered with the blood of the enemy, smiled and walked over to pat Hogun on the shoulder. Hey, brother, just a few of you beat you like this? Hogun gritted his teeth and took a breath. This is just a small part of the people. Their main force just went to the south. Before he finished speaking, a large group of people rushed over from the south. It was obvious that the enemy's main force saw the light column falling from the sky and knew that something had happened here, so they turned around and rushed over. The enemy's line of troops was very long. Looking around, there were at least tens of thousands of people. Thor's side, due to the limitation of teleportation ability, brought less than 100 Asgardian soldiers except Sif and the other three. With so many people, even if everyone fought 1 against 100, they would not be enough to trample on the tens of thousands of people on the opposite side. So many people? The nervous Volstagg stuttered a little. It was true that he liked to fight, but this was not a game of mowing the grass in a musu. How could he win against hundreds of monster soldiers alone? The faces of others, including Thor, also showed solemnity. The number of enemies was much greater than that in the Battle of New York. Thor could not guarantee that his 100,000 volts could last until all the enemies were eliminated. Among the crowd, Hogun was the most sad. Many of the people Thor brought to reinforce him might not be able to return to Asgard alive. Just when everyone was thinking hard about countermeasures, a man rushed out howling, "For the tribe!" Lozi rushed while shouting at the top of his lungs. He looked like he was scared crazy. How could a normal person charge against tens of thousands of people alone? The enemy troops on the opposite side continued to press forward. Seeing Lozi's appearance, they all laughed. They were scared crazy before they officially came into contact with the enemy. This made them feel very accomplished. On Thor's side, when everyone saw Lozi rushing out, they did not have time to think about it and started to charge. However, when they ran, they realized how terrifying Lozi's speed was. Even if they tried their best, they could not close the distance. Instead, they were pulled further and further away. Only Thor, who used the Thunder Hammer propeller, could keep up with Lozi's speed. After using the Thunder Hammer, Thor quickly rushed to Lozi's side and shouted against the wind, "There are too many enemies. Use the old tactics. You use the crystal wall to block their charge route, and I will use lightning to attack. As long as we do it a few more times, we will definitely be able to wipe them out." Lozi waved her hand. "No need to be so troublesome. I have a new trick that I have never used. It's a good time to verify its power today." Thor is not Tony. He has never seen the power of the galaxy starburst, so he doesn't trust the new trick that Lozi said. After all, even his lightning can't destroy tens of thousands of people at once. "I think we should be more cautious. After all, my lightning." At this time, the distance between the two and the enemy was less than 100 meters. Lozi suddenly stopped and put his palms together with his 5 fingers facing the opposite side. The golden light shone, and a phantom of the Milky Way suddenly appeared in the sky. After the phantom appeared, it began to rotate continuously. Countless stars fell from it at a high speed and hit the ground like meteorites. Stardust Rotation Technique. Chapter 222 Stardust Spinning. There are many Saint Seiya moves that are suitable for team battles, from the Pegasus Meteor Fist, Diamond Star, Phoenix Wing Sky Flying of the 5 Little Strongmen, to the Galaxy Starburst, Plasma Light Speed Fist, Lushan Longa and so on of the 12 Gold Saints. Basically, it can be said that every Gold Saint has a move that can be used in team battles, even Nyuja and Shura, who seem to be more suitable for single kills. Their moves can also sweep a large area. Lozi has been taught by Tiger Lord, Little Lion, Deaver, and Shi Yan Yang. The moves of these 4 people are very suitable for clearing soldiers, but after weighing the pros and cons, Lozi still chose the Stardust Rotation. Frankly speaking, it may be because of the formal apprenticeship that Lozi's mind is the most detailed and the most proficient in the skills of Ares. It is easier to use the Stardust Rotation than Lushan Longa and Galaxy Starburst. Longa is fan-shaped damage, Starburst is 3-dimensional damage, and Stardust Rotation is a movable circular range damage, and the light effect is not worse than those two. Anyway, it's bullying. These super moves basically take only a second to release. The only difference is the range. The larger the attack range, the greater the damage range. As Lozi pushed forward with both hands, starlight suddenly fell from the huge rotating galaxy in the sky, and the starlight turned into huge meteorites. The fragments of stars are meteorites. The stardust dragged a long tail of light and smashed into the ground until the ground was smashed into pieces and the pits were bloody. Only then did the roar reach the ears of Sif and others behind. In just over a second when the sound came, the continuously falling stardust smashed hundreds of people within a radius of dozens of meters into pieces. And the falling of stardust is not the end, but just the beginning. With Lozi's control, the rotating galaxy began to rush out along a line, and new stardust continued to fall from it. After hitting the ground, the previously fallen ones would bounce back and jump into the sky, entangled with the new stardust and rotate rapidly, and continue to attack the ground. Wherever the Milky Way passes, The area of several dozen meters is a meat grinder made of stardust. Enemies that fall into it are minced into piles of minced meat before they can even scream. Thor, who was standing next to Lazian, was stunned. Although his lightning could also clear large areas of soldiers, compared with the stardust rotation skill that was more hellish than the rain of fire and meteors, its efficiency was not a little bit worse. And looking at Lazia's relaxed look, I'm afraid that even if he controlled the stardust to kill tens of thousands of people, he wouldn't sweat. Not only Thor, but Sif and others behind them simply stopped far away. Under the stardust, the bloody scene was so unbearable that even those who had been on the battlefield for a long time could not bear to look directly. The number of enemy deaths soon exceeded 1,000, and as the range of the stardust expanded, not only was this number rising rapidly, but even the growth rate was constantly rising. It was only a matter of time before tens of thousands of people were strangled. This is because Lazia has not yet comprehended the seventh sense, and there is no Ares cloth to cooperate. If Shin is here, I am afraid that he only needs to move a finger, and the tens of thousands of people present will be wiped out. The tyranny of the Saint Seiya is presented to the alien races of the universe for the first time. After all, the enemies here are not the puppets of the Chitauri, but after the death toll exceeded 1,000, the whole team was in chaos, and as the number of people continued to grow, it exceeded 2,000, and soon reached 1/10 of the total number, and the enemy's psychology finally collapsed. Soon, there was a riot in the team, and the riot occurred in more than one place, and it expanded to the entire team in an instant, and then there was a collective rout. This army can be seen from the race that it is a group of rabble, and the reason why it can almost completely defeat Hogan and his team is that it relies on numbers. In the face of huge casualties in an instant, it is natural for this team, which is like a pile of loose sand, to be defeated. Even if there were dozens of giants standing behind the team, 4 or 5 meters tall, with burly bodies and bodies made of stone, as domineering as the mountain giants, they could not stop the crushing defeat. Soon, the formation of the stone giants was disrupted, and they also became the vanguards of the front row from the last row of supervisors. Lazia stopped the stardust spinning skill on his hand. Excessive use of the golden fighting skills made his brain a little short of oxygen, but pretending to be cool has penetrated into his bones. Even if his body is very weak, he will never show it easily. From a distance, he looks cool and handsome standing in the same place, motionless, like a king, motionless, like a master. Thor, who had not performed well since his appearance, was stimulated by Lazia's pretending moves and postures. After seeing those stone giants standing stupidly without running away, he screamed and laughed and rushed up. After the stardust disappeared, many people who did not run far away stopped and cast their hopeful eyes on the stone giants. Their powerful strength can destroy everything, and their tough stone skin can withstand all external attacks. In their eyes, the stone giant is the god of war. Roar! Looking at Thor rushing over, the stone giant smashed the mace in his hand to the ground fiercely, and at the same time opened his mouth and roared wildly. That posture, he was comparable to Hulk and Abomination, just in terms of strength. Bang! Thor swung his thunder hammer, and there was no enemy wherever he passed. The tall and mighty stone giants couldn't even resist a hammer, and were smashed to pieces by the thunder hammer, scattered into rubble. After smashing 10 stone giants, Thor stopped and waved his cape in a chic way. How about it? Do you want to continue? Although the stone giant's stone head was not very smart, it also knew what it could not stop. After Thor finished speaking, they surrendered one after another, and those who did not escape in the distance also knelt down and begged for mercy. In front of Lazia and Thor, their human wave tactics did not work at all, and compared with the speed of the two, they were as slow as turtles when they ran away. They couldn't fight, and they couldn't run away. In addition to surrendering, is there any other choice? Hogan's hometown has returned to peace. Women and children can finally live and play happily, and the surviving male warriors will live a happy life. In this tribe where many men have been killed or injured, the ratio of men to women has reached an astonishing 1 to 10. Excluding the elderly, the weak and children, one man can get no less than 5 women of the right age on average. Well, It seems a bit rude to discuss this topic with a tribe that has just experienced war, even if this is the only way for their tribe to grow and develop. Hogun was left in the tribe to rebuild his home with his relatives and friends and contribute to the population growth of the tribe, while Thor took his men away. The war in Vanaheim is not limited to this place, and the journey of the God's Domain Expeditionary Force will continue. Chapter 223 Fame. Hogun's tribe is just a small part of Vanaheim. When Laziah followed Thor's expeditionary force to sweep the rebels in Vanaheim, she found that Vanaheim was much wider than Asgard. There are vast oceans, developed agriculture, and even large-scale animal husbandry. Compared with Asgard surrounded by mountains, the atmosphere of life here is more intense. Of course, even so, it cannot change the fact that it is poor and backward here. The largest human settlement in Vanaheim is still not as good as Orgrimmar. In more than a month, the expeditionary force finally basically suppressed the rebellion. In fact, there were not many times in this month that were actually used for fighting. After all, once the Stardust rotation and Thor's hammer came out, anyone who could think would know that surrender was the best choice, so the sweeping mission was completed happily. The reason why it took so long was mainly because the map of Vanaheim was too large, and time was wasted on running the map. Of course, the results are still very gratifying. With the activeness of the expeditionary force, not only did Thor's name as the god of thunder resound throughout the Nine Realms again, but Saint Laziah became even more famous and became a legend of the Nine Realms that was no less than Thor. With the last piece of the map cleared, the Asgard expeditionary force was finally ready to embark on the return journey. "Where are you going next?" Laziah asked Thor curiously before the portal of the Rainbow Bridge opened. Laziah was actually not familiar with the Nine Realms under the control of Asgard. His understanding of Marvel basically came from the movies. He basically didn't know much about what was not mentioned in the movies. "Let's go back to Asgard first. There is a small problem in Nordheim." "I'll go back and take a look," Thor said with a relaxed expression. "Nordheim, one of the Nine Realms?" Laziah scratched his head, and his nature as a poor student was exposed. He had never heard of this name. "No, it's a province of Asgard, not a separate country," Thor explained casually, and it seemed that he didn't take this place called Nordheim to heart. Thinking of the clear map of Asgard, Laziah was relieved. Asgard was already small enough. One of its provinces was probably the size of a village in the city. What kind of waves could it cause? Thor, the god of thunder, would be enough. "Well, if possible, I want to go to Jotunheim to take a look," Laziah suggested. Jotunheim is the kingdom of the frost giants, and also the hometown of Loki. Ever since Loki tricked his biological father, the frost giant King Laufey, to come to Asgard, not only took Laufey's head, but also used the Rainbow Bridge to attack the frost giants' base camp, the Jotunheim Mountains. The frost giants not only suffered heavy losses, but also their kingdom, Jotunheim, fell into a rare period of chaos in history. The remaining frost giants were leaderless and began to fall into endless fighting, and the harsh natural environment of Jotunheim also posed a threat to their survival. Thor didn't even include Jotunheim in the expeditionary force's sweep plan. After they finished the battle, if the tribe had not been exterminated, Thor would just go there and reap the benefits. However, Laziah now said that he was going to Jotunheim. Was he going to completely exterminate the frost giants? After all, they were Loki's tribe. It would not be good to exterminate them all. What's the fun of going to Jotunheim? Let's go back and have a drink. Seeing Thor hesitate, Fandral came up to Laziah's shoulders enthusiastically. In the more than 1 month of the journey, the relationship between everyone was no longer as strange or tense as before, and the communication was more casual. Laziah gave Fandral a look and let him experience it himself. Over the past month, after Laziah's careful investigation and deliberation, one thing was finally confirmed. From the day after drinking to the next morning, the abnormal reactions of the maids and guards must have been related to Fandral, but this guy refused to admit it, and Laziah felt that he had not suffered any losses, and there was nothing wrong with his butt and mouth, so he did not ask the truth. However, Laziah also made a decision that he would never drink with Fandral again. This guy who looked like a gentleman was actually the most cunning person in Thor's small team. So Zodiac decided to deal with Fandral as little as possible in the future, not because he was afraid of being cheated by him, but because he was worried that he would not be able to help but kill him after being cheated by him. Since Zodiac had made a decision, Thor could not go against his wishes, so he asked Heimdall to send him to Jotunheim using the Rainbow Bridge. During the expedition, the reconstruction of the Rainbow Bridge had been completed. In theory, Heimdall could now use the Rainbow Bridge to send Zodiac to any place in the universe, even to the planet Marike, the abandoned planet where the cosmic spirit sphere was stored. However, Zodiac did not do so. It would certainly be a great sense of accomplishment to take away the treasures marked in the treasure map in advance, but after coming into contact with the cosmic cube in the Mind Scepter, Zodiac knew that what he needed most now was not the Infinity Stones, but to improve his own small universe. After the microcosm is promoted to a higher level, it can better stimulate the power of the infinite gems. In fact, when the microcosm is promoted to a higher level, his own strength will not be weaker than the infinite gems in some aspects. After taking the Rainbow Bridge to Jotunheim, Zodiac's first feeling was cold. Zodiac had never been to Siberia where Camus and Hyoga practiced, but he dared to guarantee that it was definitely countless times colder than Siberia, because the coldness of Jotunheim has exceeded the limit of the Earth. More than 100 degrees below zero is considered high temperature here. Moreover, the cold here seems to Zodiac not simply low temperature, but there seems to be a force field, a power similar to the magic cube barrier, so that the cold here can penetrate directly into the bone marrow, and any cold-resistant objects cannot stop it. To survive here, either you have an extraordinary physique or the ability or skills to resist the cold air entering the body. So after landing, Zodiac's microcosm began to operate spontaneously, constantly resisting the surrounding cold air and providing heat to the body. For Zodiac, this is simply a holy place for practice. This environment alone can play a role similar to the ice bed in the Return of the Condor heroes. After walking on the ice field for a while, Zodiac suddenly found a problem. This dimension is really a barren land. There is not even a hair. Didn't the frost giants say they were in the midst of a war? Where is the battle? Where is the chaos? After walking for a long time, I didn't even see anyone breathing. This is a bit too much. Just as Zodiac was complaining, a pair of red eyes as big as lanterns were staring at him in the ice behind him. Thank you Boring Shishimi and Zong for the 2000 reward. Thank you Yezi Batao for the reward. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Big Blue Fat Man. It is quite difficult for a person to get rid of the emptiness in his heart and kill the long and boring time when he comes to a wasteland without any signs of life. Zodiac came to Jotunheim to practice, not to exile himself. So this world like an icy hell is not what he wants. Is there anyone here? Come out and talk about life and ideals. The voice did not travel far on the ice field before it was twisted into the cold wind with ice chips. Not only did no one respond, but it also choked Zodiac. Puff. Zodiac spit out the ice chips in his mouth and muttered in confusion. Are all of the people in Jotunheim dead? No way. With their chicken pecking each other fighting style, it will take at least several centuries for them to be wiped out. So why is that? Zodiac stood there with his arms folded, thinking. Behind him, the ice layer in the air had quietly melted, and a huge round head slowly poked down. The head was very big and round, and looked a bit like a walrus, except that it didn't have two long fangs sticking out of its lips, but it had two flesh whiskers as wide as a door panel and as long as 5 or 6 meters. Although they were flesh whiskers, they were as sharp as a guillotine. The monster was standing as tall as a 5 or 6-story building, and its body length, not counting its tail, was about 20 to 30 meters, plus a tail several meters thick and more than 10 meters long. You can imagine how much damage such a huge monster could cause after rushing into the crowd. Not to mention its huge body, the two flesh whiskers on its mouth alone would be like a meat grinder. As far as the combat effectiveness of the Asgard soldiers was concerned, no matter how many people there were, they would not be enough for it to chop. Now this huge monster was poking its head over Lazia's head, and its bloody mouth slowly opened, aiming at the ignorant Lazia below. A cold wind blew past, and Lazia couldn't help shivering. This place is too. The big mouth rushed down directly, covering Lazia completely, and the monster raised his head, puffed up his mouth and looked to the side. Behind the iceberg next to him, a blue dwarf wearing only a loincloth came out. He was called a dwarf because compared to the big monster's height of 20 meters, he was like a cup dog next to a Tibetan Mastiff. However, with a height of nearly 3 meters, he was more than a head taller than the little giant Yao. To the people on Earth, he was an out-and-out giant. He. The blue giant wearing a loincloth laughed strangely. As he laughed, more loincloth giants came out, and soon the hill next to him was full. Everyone looked at the big monster with a bulging mouth with joy. These people were the masters of Jotunheim, the frost giants. From their heights of more than 3 meters, it can be seen that it was a wise choice for the frost giant King Laufey to throw away Loki. Loki, who had fine clothes, delicious food, milk and meat in Asgard, finally grew to 1.8 meters. If he were in such a harsh environment as Jotunheim, he might not even be able to drink the full moon wine. Asgard. The loincloth that appeared first looked up at the dark clouds covering the sky. The portal of the Rainbow Bridge of Asgard was opened from there. You have to pay for your crimes. This is just the beginning. As he said that, he scratched his neck with his fingers. He believed that Heimdall could see this action. Ever since the frost giant King Laufey went to Asgard and never returned, Jotunheim fell into chaos. But this chaos did not last long. With the rise of a new king, a new order began to be restored. Laufey's rule has lasted for more than 1,000 years. During this long period of time, they got used to Laufey's strength. But many people were dissatisfied with his compromise. The new king was the loincloth that appeared at the beginning. He used to be Laufey's most capable subordinate, responsible for suppressing those who were dissatisfied, and now he is the most radical war faction. They must return the humiliation that Asgard gave to Jotunheim tenfold and 100-fold, taking away the ancient winter coffin, killing King Laufey, and using the Rainbow Bridge to almost destroy Jotunheim. All these things have made the frost giants and the Aesir an irreconcilable hostile relationship. As long as there is one frost giant left, they will take revenge on Asgard until their death. King, what should we do next? A tall giant who was wearing a loincloth and a few shoulder guards and a simple heart mirror stepped forward. The loincloth king stretched out his hand and pressed down. Don't worry, Asgard will take the initiative to deliver it to the door. He didn't know Lazia's identity, but judging from his outfit, he should not be an unknown person. Asgard would naturally not be indifferent to such a person dying here. Thinking of this, the loincloth king turned his attention to the frost beast next to him, thinking about how to get this thing into the city of Asgard and let it have fun. That scene must be very happy. The loincloth king, with his mouth raised, froze unnaturally after seeing the frost beast, because the beast's expression seemed a little subtle. Since swallowing the Asgardian, it has been puffing up its mouth, not chewing or swallowing, just holding it tightly. Compared with the huge face, the facial features that were originally a little small were tightly wrinkled together, looking even more compact. What's going on? Is it constipated? The loincloth king thought unconsciously, and then saw the frost beast slowly open its mouth. The huge and dense teeth like a shark slowly separated, revealing a doorway several meters high. The doorway was filled with sharp ice cones that were thicker and more numerous than the teeth. The tips of the ice cones pressed against the upper jaw of the beast and kept stretching. The big mouth of the beast was pushed open by the ice cones, and the upper jaw was even pierced by the ice cones. Blood dripped down the ice column, dyeing the transparent ice column scarlet. Next to the ice cones, there stood a human-shaped ice sculpture. When the big mouth opened, the face of the ice sculpture melted, revealing Lazia's face. Sorry to make you laugh, it's just that the mouth of this thing stinks. If I don't cover myself like this, I'm afraid I'll be suffocated to death. You know, my 5 senses are very sharp. But it's better now. I've frozen all the places that emit the odor, so there's no smell. Sure enough, in the mouth of the giant beast, except for the ice cones in the middle that supported the upper jaw, the surrounding areas were all covered with a thick layer of ice, making the entire mouth look like an igloo. The ice layer on the ice sculpture slowly melted and condensed into an ice chair behind it. Lizaya sat to the right, and the height was just right. You know what? Lizaya crossed her legs and put them on the ground. When I was a kid, I learned a text about whales. It said 4 people sitting around a table reading in the mouth of a whale seems very spacious. At that time, I wanted to experience the feeling of living in the mouth of a whale. I didn't expect that my childhood dream would come true today. Well, there is still enough space. Do you want to come up and experience it? It feels magical. I have been watching above the dome these 2 days. I don't want to do anything. I am embarrassed to say it, but I am actually a person who can cry when watching on Taihang Mountain. I can't stand watching those works where people sacrifice their lives heroically to defend their country. That feeling is really hard to describe. Sorry everyone. I will work hard in the future. Chapter 225, Stacked Our Hats. Of course, while Lizai invited the loincloth and others, he did not forget to ask the master's opinion. Hey, Blue Fat, do you have any additions to my approach? If not, please express your welcome. Lizai raised his hand, and the frost giant opened its mouth a little wider. It wanted to roar, but it couldn't. In the end, it could only make a whimpering sound in its throat. Frustrated and aggrieved, the king of the loincloth and the frost giants behind him were all stunned. This frost giant is not a pet dog raised by earthlings, but a ferocious beast that ravaged Jotunheim. What is a ferocious beast? It is a tyrannical beast with explosive combat power but undisciplined. After being released, it may not only hurt others but also itself. Even during the Luffy period, he could not be trained to be a docile pet. He was usually frozen and released only in wartime. Because of his huge body and extremely unpicky personality about food, the Frost clan not only could not afford to raise him, but also faced the danger of being licked as food every day. But now this violent beast was controlled by someone. Although his expression was ferocious, he was obedient like Princess Iron Fan who was sucked into the stomach by Sun Wukong. He just needed to kneel down and lick his ass. What kind of metaphor is this, King? What should we do? The big man in tattered armor approached King Loincloth and whispered to seek countermeasures. King Loincloth's dark red eyes narrowed. It's just a beast. At worst, we can kill it together. He had made a decision. Although the Asgardian in front of him could perform good ice magic, this was Jotunheim. He had more than 100 people, and many more were coming here. Since this person could perform magic, it meant that he was not an ordinary person in Asgard, because even among the Aesir, magic was only learned by people of noble status. So, today, no matter what, this person must be kept and made to pay for King Luffy's life. As the words of the king of the loincloth fell, hundreds of frost giants, from the armored giant down, clenched their fists tightly. They didn't have enough fun fighting Thor's guys last time. Seeing them like this, Lizai smiled and stood up from his seat. Well, it seems that you want to get close to me, but you think the space here is too small, right? It just so happens that I have the same idea. In that case, I'll get down. When the last word came out of his mouth, Lizai's people had already jumped out of the blue fat man's mouth, and it seemed that they were going to end with a standard heroic landing. However, the loincloths who had long been unhappy with him didn't even wait for him to land and were already shouting to attack. Those who were close rushed forward and punched directly. Those who were far away couldn't reach him, but they didn't stay idle either. They punched the ground directly. As the fist touched the ground, the cold air rushed out along the ground like a snake, and the target was Lizai's landing point. There were no less than 10 people smashing the ground. The cold air passed over the few people rushing forward and rushed to Lizai's body. Then it turned into ice cones and rushed out of the ground. The sharp ice tip pierced Lizai's crotch. The ice cone in the mouth made a monster as big as the frost giant sit down and act like a dog. You can imagine how it felt to have the tender anus pierced, and being pierced by dozens of ice cones. The feeling is probably not just sour and refreshing. Even if Lizai had experienced a lot of big men during her training on the Holy Clothes Box, she would definitely not be able to withstand so many real swords and guns entering at the same time. Really, with the appearance of the ice cones, the faces of the few people rushing forward showed strange smiles of success. The magician's body is relatively weak, and he can't defend against such ice cones. In the air, Lazian, who was falling, seemed to have not seen the appearance of the ice cone at all. The speed of falling did not change at all, and his legs stepped directly on the ice cone. Boom! When Lazian landed, the smiles of the loincloths froze on their faces. The ice cones, which were tough and sharp enough to pierce the body of an Asgardian wearing armor, shattered like tofu dregs under his feet, not to mention penetrating the body. Even the speed of landing was not hindered at all, and the exploding ice chips added a circle of dreamy crystal special effects to this landing action. The loincloths did not stop their actions. They could not understand the situation in front of them, and they did not need to understand it. No matter how he did it, they just punched him. No matter how strong his defense was, so many people could beat him to death. More than a dozen people approached at the same time and stood in a staggered manner. The people in front punched, and the ones behind a little further away used ice to turn their palms into weapons. Some were hand knives, and some were ice spears. Dozens of hands smashed towards Lazian at the same time. In the crystal special effects, Lazian raised his head and cracked his mouth. The sneak attack just now couldn't hurt me. I don't think your fists will be harder than ice cones. Also, I've never been afraid of anyone who compares the number of fists. A ball of white light lit up from Lazian's body, followed by countless white fist shadows flying towards the frost giants. The distance between the two sides was too close, and the supersonic fist shadows almost just appeared from Lazian's hand and hit the fists of the frost giants. Accompanied by the loud noise of ice breaking, blood was scattered all over the sky, and more than a dozen frost giants flew out, crossed a distance of more than 10 meters and fell to the ground and turned into rolling gourds. When they stopped, everyone realized that the arms that these people had used to attack just now had disappeared. Lazian's punch just now not only knocked them all away, but also smashed all their fists. What a domineering punch! Screams rang out in the wilderness, and the miserable sight of the frost giants who lost their arms twitching in pain on the ground made the others go crazy instantly. This domineering punch did not scare them, but instead aroused their infinite fighting spirit. Very good. Lazian breathed a sigh of relief. I was worried that a casual punch would scare you so much that you dared not move, and this battle would end in a whimper. Now it seems that I was overthinking. Very good, very good. Come on, let me test your determination to fight to the death and see if you are worthy of being the enemy of Asgard. Come on. Lazian's roar was like a starting gun, instantly smashing a hornet's nest. Not only did the few people who witnessed the tragedy just now in the near distance, but also the many frost giants who had been standing in the distance rushed over with their teeth bared, as if they were going to crush you to death even if they couldn't kill you. Beautiful. Lazian raised his fist and rushed forward. This time he didn't plan to use skills, but to use his fists to get close to these big guys. Thank you Shimmerhui for the 1000 reward. Thank you Xoanyu and Xingjun for the 500 reward. I heard that someone was going to quit the project, so I came back to write again in a hurry. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.